Chapter 894. There was no other response in the room except for waves of miserable cries. Perhaps she still couldn't accept the fact that Xiao Han had left. Chen Tingfang sighed sadly and silently turned to leave. At a time like this, Zissou definitely didn't want to see her. Yi Zissou locked herself in her room for an entire day. She didn't eat or drink, and no matter who came to persuade her, she wouldn't open the door. When she came out of her room the next day, everyone, including Ji Yuqi, was shocked. She was thinner than before. She was wearing a long white dress, her face was pale, and her long hair hung down to her shoulders. She had a dark and gloomy aura around her as she floated down from upstairs like a female ghost. Everyone who was eating stared at her in a daze. Ji Yunhan almost choked on his milk and mumbled, "Second sister, what's wrong with you?" Ji Bowen coughed and said, "Zissou, you must be hungry. Come and have breakfast." As the head of the family, he was also very curious as to why Zissou had become like this. However, it was obvious that she had suffered a huge blow, so it was better not to remind her of her sad past. Yi Zissou's indifferent gaze swept across everyone and finally landed on Chen Tingfang. A hint of hatred flashed in her eyes as she said indifferently, "No need. You guys eat. I want to go out for a walk." Her thin figure disappeared from everyone's sight, and the atmosphere froze for a moment. Chen Tingfang forced a smile and said to Ji Bowen, "It's okay. She's just in a bad mood. Let her go out for a walk." Ji Yuqi lowered her eyes and quietly cut the fried sausages. The sharp blade of the knife cut the sausages again and again, and the corners of her lips curved into a faint smile. Yi Zissou drove to the apartment where Xiao Han used to live. She opened the door with the key she left behind. The room still had its original decorations. They used to spend many happy times here. In the empty room, she could still hear his laughter and smell the faint fragrance of grass and wood on his body. Her tears fell once again. She covered her mouth and cried silently. "Ihan, why are you so cruel? After I fell in love with you, you left me alone." She didn't know how long she had been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she almost couldn't open them. She hadn't eaten for a long time, which caused her blood sugar to be low. Her vision turned black. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes to rest for a while before she felt slightly better. The study was still as messy as it had been the other day. She squatted on the floor and searched everywhere, trying to find the notebook that Xiao Han had left behind. However, after searching the entire study, she could not find it. She did not know where it had gone. She wanted to keep his personal belongings as a memento, but he didn't like to take photos. There was not a single photo in the room. He had taken all the clothes in the wardrobe with him. Other than the furniture, there was only a computer left. She turned on the computer with a pained and desperate heart. She flipped through the photos of him and Chen Tingfang. Her heart was filled with hatred. If it wasn't for Chen Tingfang forcing him, he wouldn't have left China and wouldn't have gotten into a car accident in America. It was all Chen Tingfang's fault. She stared at Chen Tingfang's familiar face in the photos and wanted to bite her to death. At Yingqing International Airport, a tall and handsome man with a pair of sunglasses rested on the bridge of his nose. His right hand was pulling a suitcase and his left hand was in his trouser pocket. He was leisurely waiting to board the plane. With such a handsome face, he attracted a lot of attention. Even the stewardess took a few more glances at him. If Yi Zissou saw him, she would definitely faint from shock. This was because he was Xiao Han, who had died in the car accident. Before boarding the plane to New York, Xiao Han took off his sunglasses and took one last look at the city. There was a hint of nostalgia in his dark eyes and his sexy thin lips were slightly curved. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. The plane had not taken off yet. He sat by the window and looked at the city that he had lived in for many years. There was a hint of disappointment in his heart, but more than that, he was looking forward to a new life. His slender fingers swiped on his phone and answered the call. His lips curled into a faint smile. "Miss, the mission is complete. You just have to wait for the results." Ji Yuqi was driving and had a Bluetooth earpiece in his ear. He smiled when he heard what Xiao Han said. Sure, I've never doubted your ability. Xiao Yang, the doctor said that Anne's eyes are recovering well. If you hurry over, you can accompany her to remove the gauze. Xiao Han, whose real name was Xiao Yang, smiled wider and said in a warm voice, I want to be the first person Anne sees after she recovers her sight. After saying that, he paused and said slowly, Yuchi, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for us. Ji Yuchi laughed softly. Don't be too touched. I'm just doing what I should according to our deal. Xiao Yang's eyes sparkled. He knew that she did not need his gratitude, but he would never forget her kindness. When Xiao Yang was in junior high school, Father Xiao drove a car borrowed from a friend and took the whole family out to play. Unexpectedly, he was so tired that he drove and got into a car accident. Father Xiao and Mother Xiao were seriously injured and died. His sister, Xiao An, was only 8 years old when she lost her eyes and could no longer see this colorful world. Since then, Xiao Yang and his sister relied on each other. Their relatives helped them, but as they grew older and their expenses increased, their relatives gradually stopped visiting. Xiao Yang chose to drop out of high school and work 2 jobs every day to support himself and his sister. He was good-looking, so many people harassed him when he was working. Finally, one day, he walked into a nightclub with the idea of saving money for his sister's surgery. He was good-looking, young, and innocent, and quickly won the favor of the female customers. The store also spent a lot of effort to cultivate him into a graceful, elegant, and well-spoken young master, causing the customers to flock to him like a flock of ducks. He was the number one in the store, and could even choose his own female customers. He saved a lot of money, but he still couldn't do the surgery for his sister because the success rate of the same surgery in the country was too low, and he couldn't wait for a suitable cornea. Xiao Yang would always remember the day Ji Yuchi came to him. He thought that she was no different from those rich girls who went to nightclubs to indulge themselves and look for excitement, but she didn't. She took off her sunglasses, revealing a pair of intelligent and charming eyes. She smiled and said, Xiao Yang, do you want your sister to regain her sight? He couldn't refuse her help. He signed an agreement with her. She would find the best hospital and the best doctor for An, help her regain her sight, and pay all the expenses during this period. Not only did she do it, but she also bought an extra apartment for the siblings to live in. She even helped them get a green card so that they could stay in the United States and start a new life. Xiao Yang remembered everything Ji Yuchi did for him. He swore that if he had the chance, he would repay her. According to the agreement, Xiao Yang deliberately got close to Chen Tingfang, seduced her, and got evidence of her infidelity. He also instigated the relationship between Chen Tingfang and Yi Zissou, causing them to turn against each other. Thinking of this, he took out a black notebook from his bag. It was the notebook that Yi Zissou couldn't find for a long time. It recorded his love for Yi Zissou and his slander of Chen Tingfang. Of course, he wouldn't let Yi Zissou keep such written evidence. When he got off the plane, he would destroy it with his own hands. From then on, Xiao Han would completely disappear from the world. The one who would get a new life would be him, Xiao Yang. After ending the call, Ji Yuchi narrowed her eyes slightly and the corners of her lips curled up. Yi Zissou, don't let me down. Please work hard to fight with your mother. Yi Zissou didn't let her down. In a state of sadness and anger, she sorted out the photos of Chen Tingfang and Xiao Han and sent them to Ji Bowen's office anonymously. Of course, Yi Zissou didn't lose her mind. She wouldn't publicize it and let everyone know. That would also affect her own reputation. Ji Bowen opened the package and saw the photos inside. He was so angry that his blood pressure rose and he almost fainted. His fingers trembled as he flipped through the photos. Because of the angle of the photos, Chen Tingfang's face was exposed in each photo, so no one would mistake her for someone else. As for the wild man's face, he didn't know if the photographer did it on purpose, but he didn't expose his face at all, so no one could recognize who he was. It was only a dozen or so photos, but it took him a full hour to finish reading them. The veins on his forehead were bulging, and his eyes were burning with anger. His cold and handsome face was covered with dark clouds, which was very frightening. Ji Bowen didn't even care about the meeting in the afternoon. He took the photos and went home angrily. When he found Shen Tingfang, she was entertaining a few rich ladies at home. The four of them gathered together to play mahjong. Chen Tingfang saw his livid face and knew something was wrong. She quickly smiled and said, "Honey, why are you back? I invited a few friends to play at home. This is Mrs. Lin, Mrs. Wang, Mrs. Zhang." Ji Bowen stood at the door like a black-faced deity. He didn't greet the other ladies. Mrs. Lin was the best at reading people's expressions. She quickly smiled and said, "I'm not playing anymore. I'm not playing anymore. I lost terribly today." "Good, I'm tired too. Sister Chen, Mr. Ji, we'll take our leave first." The three madams tactfully said their goodbyes and left. Ji Bowen let out a deep "n" and didn't say any more pleasantries. Chen Tingfang hurriedly had the servants send the three of them off. The living room quickly returned to silence. Chen Tingfang knew that he didn't like her playing mahjong at home. She smiled awkwardly and said, "Hubby, I'm sorry. They said they wanted to come to our house to play, and I didn't want to refuse. Don't worry, I won't let them come over next time." Ji Bowen ignored her deliberate flattery. His face was so gloomy that water could be wrung out. He glanced at her coldly and said, "Come upstairs with me." Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 895. Chen Tingfang felt uneasy as she followed him into the study. Just as she closed the door, a stack of photos came flying at her face. Her body trembled and she instinctively stepped back, but her cheek was still scratched by the sharp edges of the photos. The photos scattered in the air like snowflakes and slowly drifted to the ground. One of them landed by her feet. She stared at the photos in shock, her heart filled with panic. Of course, she remembered them. Xiao Han had taken these photos and said that they were to be mementos. Why would they appear here? Ji Bowen pointed at her nose and scolded, "Chen Tingfang, how shameless can you be? How could you do such a shameless thing? Are you worthy of me?" Chen Tingfang stared at the photos in shock and said frantically, "I didn't do it, Bowen. I really didn't do it. Those photos must have been photoshopped. Someone must be trying to frame me." Ji Bowen slammed the desk and roared, "Chen Tingfang, do you think I'm a fool? Who would be so bored as to frame you again and again?" Chen Tingfang's eyes reddened and tears fell. I don't know either. Bowen, why won't you believe me? I love you so much. How could I do anything to let you down? I really didn't do it. If you don't believe me, I can swear to God." She raised her hand and swore, "If I did anything to let you down, I'll be struck by lightning and die a horrible death." "All right. Even if you say a lot of things this time, I won't believe you again." She was the one who had shattered his trust in her. As a man, he couldn't tolerate being cuckolded by his wife. "Bowen," Ji Bowen interrupted her and said sternly, "I warned you last time that if you dare to have any ill intentions, I'll divorce you. It seems like you ignored my words. I'll inform the lawyer now to draft the divorce agreement." As he spoke, he reached for the phone. Chen Tingfang pounced on him agitatedly and held his right hand. She cried, "No, no, Bowen. Please don't divorce me. I really love you. I can't leave you. Let go. I will never believe your words again. This marriage must be divorced. I don't want Yuchi and Ahan to be killed by a heartless woman like you." Ji Bowen's heart was already filled with anger, and he wished he could immediately kick this woman out of the house. "Bowen, have you forgotten the promise you made 30 years ago? You said that you would love me forever and take care of me forever." "Bowen, I haven't changed. I've always been the Tingfang who treated you as my sky, but you've changed. You only have your daughter and son in your heart. I don't mind if you misunderstand me or hurt me, but please don't leave me." Chen Tingfang hugged his arm and cried her heart out. She recalled their past and cried about his coldness. She confessed to him affectionately just to change her mind. Ji Bowen was upset. He did have feelings for her, but he couldn't stand her lying to him again and again. He had given her countless chances, but she had trampled on his feelings again and again. Go away. It's too late to say anything now. He gritted his teeth and pushed her away. Chen Tingfang followed his force and fell to the ground with a plop. Then, she closed her eyes and fainted. Ji Bowen had just picked up the phone and didn't have time to call when he found her unconscious on the ground. Although he was angry, he wouldn't let her lie on the ground. He immediately carried her back to the bedroom and ordered the servant to call the family doctor over. The matter of contacting a lawyer was temporarily put aside. The family doctor quickly rushed over and checked. He said that Chen Tingfang had a temporary cerebral ischemia caused by a moment of agitation. It was nothing serious and she would wake up after some rest. However, she had to pay attention to maintaining her emotional stability. Otherwise, it could cause serious consequences in the long run. Chen Tingfang was lying on the bed and had yet to wake up. Ji Bowen was pacing around the room with a sullen face. Ji Yuqi, who had heard the news, saw this scene and said softly, "Dad, I heard from the doctor that Auntie is fine. Don't worry." Ji Bowen was helpless. He wasn't worried at all. He was troubled. However, as a father, he couldn't tell his daughter about Chen Tingfang's affair. He could only nod his head. "Dad, don't stay here. Let Auntie have a good rest." Ji Yuqi held his arm. When she looked up at him, she saw that there were more white hairs on his head. Her heart felt as if it had been soaked in a bucket of vinegar. It was unbearably sour. Her eyes were hot and tears were about to flow out. She quickly looked down and forced the tears back. Ji Bowen sighed. "Okay, let's go out." The door slammed shut and the room returned to silence. Chen Tingfang slowly opened her eyes. She let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, she had pretended to faint. Otherwise, Ji Bowen would already be discussing the divorce agreement with the lawyer. Then, she frowned again. Right now, she couldn't care less about who gave those photos to Ji Bowen. She had to think of a way to dispel Ji Bowen's thoughts of divorce. On the other side, Ji Yuqi held onto Ji Bowen's arm and accompanied him for a walk in the garden. The father and daughter walked quietly on the path. Ji Yuqi's eyes were slightly lowered. She was thinking about something. Originally, she wanted to borrow Yi Zisu's hand to make the whole city know about Chen Tingfang's affair so that she could no longer have a foothold in the upper-class society. However, she had changed her mind. If Chen Tingfang's scandal was made public, her father would also be implicated and would be laughed at by others. She couldn't let her father get hurt. She already felt guilty for letting Xiao Yihan seduce Chen Tingfang. Ji Bowen was still not used to his lively daughter snuggling up to him like an obedient little bunny. He pressed his right hand on the top of her head and said gently, "Chi-Chi, what are you thinking about?" Ji Yuqi looked up at him. Although he had a kind smile on his face, she could still see a faint gloominess between his brows. She felt sorry and guilty. She said softly, "Dad, I'm sorry." "Huh? Did you get into trouble again?" Ji Bowen deliberately put on a stern face. Ji Yuqi hurriedly shook her head. Thinking that something was wrong, she nodded again. Ji Bowen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Did you get into trouble or not?" She didn't answer his question. Instead, she asked, "Dad, if I knew that someone was a bad person, but I still deliberately induced her to do bad things because she did bad things and ended up hurting others. Dad, am I wrong to do this?" Ji Bowen was startled as he looked at his daughter in front of him. Her eyes revealed a trace of confusion, as if she was a lost child. He naturally rubbed her hair and gently said, "Before I answer your question, answer me first. What is your purpose in doing this?" Ji Yuqi bit her lips. "I want to take revenge on that person and protect the people I care about. Only by completely destroying the relationship between Chen Tingfang and her father could she drive Chen Tingfang out of the Ji family. Moreover, she wanted Chen Tingfang and Yi Zissou to turn against each other and hurt each other. There was a kind of battle called killing with a borrowed knife, and there was also a kind of battle called killing without shedding a drop of blood. Ji Bowen's eyes moved slightly. He looked at her with a complicated expression and said meaningfully, "Since you want to protect the people you care about, I'm sure you'll be able to get through the harm. Chi-Chi, there's no such thing as right or wrong in this world. As long as you have a clear conscience, that's enough." Ji Yuqi's lips quivered a few times. She really wanted to tell him the truth, but when the words reached the tip of her tongue, she lost her courage. She avoided his deep gaze and said softly, "I understand, Dad." She didn't see that the moment she lowered her head, disappointment flashed across Ji Bowen's eyes. From Yuqi's words, he had already guessed who had sent those photos to him. However, since his daughter didn't want to say it, he wouldn't force her. At least, he knew that she had good intentions. In the master bedroom. "I heard that you're sick. I also heard that Uncle Ji wants to divorce you." The eerie and cold voice was right next to her ear. Chen Tingfang woke up abruptly. She opened her eyes and saw a magnified pale face. She was so frightened that she screamed and quickly moved back. He. Why are you hiding? I'm not going to eat you." Yi Zissou covered her mouth with one hand and laughed sinisterly. She moved back and sat on the chair next to the bed. You. Chen Tingfang was frightened by the pale makeup on her face. She didn't recover for a long time. She pointed at her face and said intermittently, "Wipe off the white powder on your face. You scared me to death, tch, why do you care what makeup I put on?" Yi Zissou's cold gaze was glued to her. She curled her lips in disdain. "Pretending to be sick again? You're really something." Chen Tingfang's heart was filled with Ihan. She cried out involuntarily, "Zissou, I'm your mother. Do you really want to be enemies with me? I gave birth to you after carrying you for 10 months. I raised you painstakingly. Is this how you repay me? I've heard these words of yours for more than 20 years. My ears are getting calluses. You've always wanted to marry me off to a rich man. You just want to ride on my coattails. In your eyes, a daughter like me isn't as important as money. Don't make it sound like I've wronged you. You're the one who wronged me first." Chen Tingfang was so angry that her voice trembled. "I admit that Ihan and I used to be together. But at that time, there was nothing between the two of you. When you said that you loved him, I also thought of backing out. I really didn't know that he went back to America. Why won't you believe me? Touch your conscience and ask yourself. All these years, when have I ever mistreated you? I've treated you like a treasure since you were young. I held you in my hands and was afraid that you'd fall. I kept you in my mouth and was afraid that you'd melt. You. Stop." Yi Zissou impatiently interrupted her incessant chatter. She stood up and looked down at her condescendingly. Her gaze was cold as she said, "What you've just said is what a mother should do. What's there to be proud of? You caused Ihan's death. You caused the death of the person I love the most. We can never go back to the past." Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 896. Chen Tingfang grabbed her arm and said anxiously, "What did you say? What do you mean by causing Ihan's death? What happened to Ihan?" Yi Zissou turned her head abruptly. Her cold gaze seemed to be laced with poison as she said fiercely, "I won't allow you to call Ihan by his name. You don't deserve it. If it weren't for you, he wouldn't have returned to America, and he wouldn't have gotten into a car accident. It's all because of you that he's dead." Chen Tingfang looked as if she had been struck by lightning. Her face turned pale as she shook her head in disbelief. "How could he? You must be lying to me." Yi Zissou looked as if she had heard a funny joke. She laughed so hard that tears rolled down her cheeks. She shouted hysterically, "Lying to you? I also hope that it's a lie, but I heard it with my own ears. Ihan is dead. The man I love will never come back." Chen Tingfang had been waiting for Xiao Yihan's news. She didn't expect to hear that he was no longer alive. Her vision immediately turned black, and she slumped onto the bed. Seeing her heartbroken expression, Yi Zixu was only moved for a second before she quickly regained her cold expression. From the moment Yihan passed away, there was no longer any mother-daughter relationship between her and Chen Tingfang. Chen Tingfang was disheartened at first. Later, she hugged the blanket and cried bitterly. She didn't even know when Yi Zixu left. In the evening, Ji Bowen came upstairs, intending to continue discussing the divorce with Chen Tingfang. Chen Tingfang was in low spirits. Her eyes were red and swollen, and it was obvious that she had cried. She sat on the sofa listlessly and said calmly, "If you insist on getting a divorce and abandoning your child, I have no objections." Ji Bowen's eyebrows twitched. He asked in a low voice, "What do you mean?" She looked down and stroked her abdomen with her right hand. She smiled bitterly and said, "It's unbelievable, isn't it? I'm already so old, but I'm pregnant. Otherwise, why do you think I suddenly fainted after falling? This child is really lucky that his father didn't kill him." Her sarcastic tone made Ji Bowen very uncomfortable. At the same time, it evoked the guilt in his heart. He pursed his lips and said coldly, "It's still not certain if this child is mine. Do I need to remind you that we haven't slept together for more than a month?" Chen Tingfang seemed to be exhausted. She leaned on the soft cushion and said weakly, "It's your memory's bad. A month and a half ago, you went to a party and you drank too much and to forget what you did. If you don't believe me, you'll do a paternity test after the child's, since you're pregnant. Why did you only tell me now? Is this an excuse you made up at the last minute?" Chen Tingfang shook her head helplessly. "I only found out today. I didn't have time to tell you, and you. Besides, I can lie to you about being pregnant for a while, but can I lie to you for 10 months? Forget it. I'm very tired. I don't want to argue with you." Ji Bowen was speechless. If she was really pregnant with his child, of course, he couldn't divorce her. If word got out, people would only say that he, Ji Bowen, had abandoned his wife and child. He thought for a moment and said, "I'll accompany you to the hospital tomorrow for a prenatal checkup." Accompanying her to the hospital for a prenatal checkup sounded nice, but he actually wanted to see if she was pregnant or not. Chen Tingfang sneered inwardly, but she wasn't afraid. She had already made arrangements in the afternoon. The director of the obstetrics and gynecology department in the city hospital was a friend of her cousin, Lu Jianfeng. It was only a matter of minutes for him to forge a fake prenatal checkup report. Mrs. G is already 7 weeks pregnant. For an elderly woman like Mrs. G, the risk of pregnancy is higher. You have to maintain a good mood and do a good prenatal monitoring and checkup. Yang Hao, the director of the obstetrics and gynecology department, said to Ji Bowen and his wife. Chen Tingfang couldn't hide the joy on her face. She kept asking about things she should take note of, as if it was her first pregnancy. Ji Bowen didn't look good. He already had 2 children, and he didn't have much hope for the child in Chen Tingfang's belly. Besides, the child might not be his own. He felt frustrated at the thought of that. After Chen Tingfang and Yang Hao finished talking, Ji Bowen asked Yang Hao alone, "Dr. Yang, is there any way to do a paternity test before a pregnant woman gives birth?" Yang Hao was shocked, but he didn't show it on his face. He smiled and said, "You can do an amniocentesis DNA test after 16 weeks of pregnancy, but there's still a certain risk. Besides, Mrs. G is an elderly woman, so the risk is even higher, so I don't recommend doing that. It's best to wait until the baby is born." Yang Hao had received benefits from Chen Tingfang, and Lu Jianfeng had also given him a heads up. Naturally, he had to do his best to sway Ji Bowen and dispel any thoughts of Ji Bowen. Although Ji Bowen didn't like the child who came at the wrong time, he didn't want Chen Tingfang to take the risk, so he quickly gave up on the idea of doing a fetal test. However, he couldn't get a divorce for the time being. Ever since Chen Tingfang was pregnant, she had been staying at home obediently. When the ladies asked her out, she would reject them because she was pregnant. Soon, everyone knew about her pregnancy. Even if Ji Bowen was worried about what outsiders thought, he wouldn't ask for a divorce at this time, Chen Tingfang thought smugly. Madam, this is the freshest cherries. It was just flown in from Canada. Try it. Madam, the kitchen just made some nutritious porridge. Have some. Madam, in the living room, the servants were scrambling to persuade Chen Tingfang to eat something. As for Chen Tingfang, she was nestled on the sofa with a pale face. She helplessly sighed, I don't want to eat. I have no appetite. Ji Bowen was sitting beside her with a newspaper in his hand. He looked up at her and said, It's been hard on you. Your pregnancy reaction is too strong. Wasn't it hard to pretend to be pregnant and vomit? Chen Tingfang stroked her belly and smiled. Her eyes were gentle and kind. Maybe I'm old and can't stand this little ancestor's torment. When he comes out, I'll definitely spank his little butt for tormenting me like this. Yi Zhisu chuckled and covered her mouth. Mom, didn't you say that you could eat and drink when you were pregnant with me and that your pregnancy reaction was very small? Maybe you're pregnant with a little brother this time. It's obvious that boys and girls are different. Although she was joking, Chen Tingfang felt that it was a little harsh. She forced herself to smile. It's hard to say whether it's a boy or a girl, but it's definitely tormenting. It's not even born yet and it's already tormenting me like this. Won't it be worse when it's born? How could Yi Zhisu not understand that she was implying? The smile on her lips froze and her eyes turned cold. She cursed her in her heart countless times. Ji Yuqi said that she enjoyed watching the show, but she had more important things to do. After eating the fruit, she went upstairs. Just as she returned to her room, Liang Yu called. Miss Ji, I've investigated the matter you asked me to investigate. The doctor who helped Chen Tingfang is called Yang Hao. He's Lu Jianfeng's elementary school classmate. He admitted that he took Chen Tingfang's bribe and helped her forge the pregnancy report. In short, Chen Tingfang isn't pregnant at all. She nodded and said, Thank you for your hard work, Liang Yu. Chen Tingfang didn't get pregnant earlier or later. She got pregnant when her scandal was exposed and her father wanted to divorce her. It was too much of a coincidence. It was so coincidental that it was suspicious, so she asked Liang Yu to help investigate. This time, she wouldn't do it herself. She would leave the task of chasing Chen Tingfang out of the Ji family to Yi Zhisu. Ji Yuqi's slender fingers played with a USB flash drive. The USB flash drive stored the video of Jiang Tianhao abusing Yi Zhisu. A few days later, Chen Tingfang accidentally found Yi Zhisu's laptop in Xiao Yihan's room. She immediately realized that Yi Zhisu had seen photos of her and Xiao Yihan being intimate on the computer. She had developed the photos and sent them to Ji Bowen. She never expected that the daughter she had raised would really lay a hand on her. She, who had suffered a huge blow, was furious and heartbroken. She couldn't help but call Yi Zhisu to her room. She pointed at her nose and scolded, Are you still human? How could you harm your own mother? Even if I divorced Ji Bowen, what benefits can you get? Yi Zhisu's face was distorted with anger. Even if I can't get anything, I don't want to see you living comfortably. Why are you still living like a rich wife when the man I love is dead? You're crazy. Chen Tingfang was flustered and exasperated. She ruthlessly slapped her. Hurry up and wake up. Humph, I'm crazy. I've been crazy since Yihan died. Yi Zhisu covered her cheek with her hand and said coldly, This slap is to repay you for raising me. From now on, I don't owe you anything. Take care of yourself. Don't let me catch you. Otherwise, she wouldn't let her have an easy time. Chen Tingfang was heartbroken by her daughter's heartlessness. 2 days after this incident, a video of Jiang Tianhao beating Yi Zhisu appeared on the internet. Some people even posted that the second daughter of the Ji family, Miss Yi Zhisu, had been sexually abused by her ex-husband ever since she got married. They also said that the reason they divorced was because Yi Zhisu couldn't stand Jiang Tianhao's abuse. The love story between a rich girl and a rich man was just a joke. Yi Zhisu and Jiang Tianhao had a low-key divorce, so many people didn't know about it. Now that their marriage was exposed, it immediately became a hot topic on the internet. Even some gossip media and magazines jumped in front of Yizisu to ask her for confirmation. Needless to say, at school, everyone looked at her with colored glasses. People who hated her even created all kinds of rumors, saying that Jiang Tianhao abused her because she had an affair. Some people even said that Jiang Tianhao married her because she seduced him. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 897. She was the victim, so why was she the one being blamed? Yizisu was about to go crazy, but the person she hated the most was Chen Tingfang. She rushed back to the Ji family as fast as she could, and when she passed by the garden, she heard someone whispering. It's amazing that Madame can still get pregnant at such an old age. Let me tell you, I suspect Madame is pretending. Didn't you see how well she's been at home recently? Shoo, someone's coming. Let's go. Yizisu was in a hurry to settle the score with Chen Tingfang, so she didn't ask who was secretly discussing it. However, she took the words about fake pregnancy to heart. She ran all the way until she was in front of Chen Tingfang. Disregarding everything, she slapped her and scolded coldly, B*TCH. Chen Tingfang was stunned by her slap. Then, she was furious. You bastard, how dare you hit me? I'm your mother. Shut up. I don't have a vicious mother like you. You called me a bastard, but I think you're worse than a bastard. You keep saying that I'm your daughter, but have you ever considered me? You actually posted the video of Jiang Tianhao abusing me online, and you even let people say that I've been sexually abused by him for a long time. Have you ever thought about the consequences of doing this? Yizisu yelled hysterically. She had reached an agreement with Jiang Tianhao that she wouldn't expose the video of domestic abuse, and Jiang Tianhao wouldn't expose the evidence of her and her daughter's evil deeds. Now, what awaited her was Jiang Tianhao's revenge. She suddenly grinned. Don't you want to have this child? Let's see how you're going to give birth. As soon as she finished speaking, she pushed Chen Tingfang hard. Chen Tingfang lost her balance and fell to the ground with a plop. Chen Tingfang was in so much pain that she gritted her teeth and pretended to hold her stomach. Zisu, calm down. I wasn't the one who exposed that video. You've really wronged me. It's useless no matter how you quibble. Yizisu stood in front of her, waiting for her to bleed and lose the child in her stomach. Chen Tingfang knew her intentions and pretended to cry out, ouch, it hurts. My child, Zisu, hurry up and call the doctor, hee, it's better if the child is aborted. Yizisu waited for a long time, but there was no bloody scene. She sneered and squatted in front of Chen Tingfang. An ordinary pregnant woman might bleed from a fall, but you're so old that you're not hurt at all. Then, there's only one possibility, and that is that you're pretending to be pregnant. Am I right? Chen Tingfang's expression changed. Yizisu confirmed her guess and said sarcastically, I knew it. You haven't been pregnant for so many years, but when Ji Bowen wanted to divorce you, you got pregnant. How lucky are you? Chen Tingfang's face turned pale. She gritted her teeth and said, I'm really pregnant. This child is tough, so you didn't kill it. Humph, I didn't expect you to admit it. She would expose her in front of Ji Bowen. After the domestic violence video was publicized, Jiang Tianhao's life became worse. He was laughed at by his male colleagues, regarded as a scourge by his female colleagues, and even criticized by his neighbors. He blamed all of this on Yizisu. He wanted revenge. In the dark night, there were stars twinkling in the sky. Ji Yuqi clutched her handbag and walked alone on the tree-lined road of the capital university. A tall figure suddenly walked out of the woods and blocked her way. He called out in a deep voice, Yuqi. Although Ji Yuqi wasn't timid, she was still taken aback when someone suddenly appeared in front of her to block her way. She narrowed her eyes and used the dim light to size up the newcomer. He was immaculately dressed, and there was obvious fatigue between his handsome brows. There was already some stubble on his chin. She could tell that he had been having a bad time recently. She was expressionless and said lightly, Mr. Jiang, what can I do for you? Jiang Tianhao clenched his briefcase and took a step forward. Yuqi, even if we can't be lovers, we are still friends. Why are you so cold to me? Ji Yuqi took a step back and lifted her chin slightly. Don't come so close. I can hear you. Mr. Jiang, please tell me. Why are you looking for me? He hated her condescending tone and arrogant gaze. The veins on his forehead throbbed a few times. He tried to suppress his anger and said in a deep voice, Yuqi, I know you hate me. I really regret not rejecting Yizisu back then. It wasn't until recently that I found out that she was vicious and did many things to hurt you. Ji Yuqi raised her eyebrows. He wanted to use her to deal with Yizisu. Not bad. She chuckled. This joke isn't funny at all. Zisu and I are good friends. How could she hurt me? Jiang Tianhao took out a USB flash drive from his briefcase. This is evidence of Yizisu and her mother plotting to hurt you. It also has their conversation. Ji Yuqi glanced at the USB flash drive in his hand but didn't reach out to take it. She said expressionlessly, since you already have the evidence, why are you only giving it to me now? Jiang Tianhao looked guilty. I'm sorry. Yizisu and I hadn't divorced back then. She begged me to forgive her and said that she would never hurt you again, so I wanted to give her a chance. But now that she has returned to the Ji family, I'm worried that she will continue to hurt you, so I'm giving this to you. I want you to be vigilant and not be hurt by her again. What a perfect excuse. Unfortunately, Ji Yuqi didn't need the evidence, and she didn't want to be used by Jiang Tianhao. She smiled. Thank you for your concern. I'll be vigilant, but I don't need the evidence. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. Wait. Jiang Tianhao gritted his teeth, grabbed her arm and said, Yuqi, aren't you curious about what Yizisu has done? Are you willing to be schemed against and hurt by her? That's my business. You don't have to worry about it. Ji Yuqi stared at his hand with a fierce gaze. He had never seen her like this before. He felt a chill in his heart and let go of his hand. As if she had been stained by something dirty, Ji Yuqi very naturally reached out and patted the place where he had grabbed her. She didn't say anything else and directly walked past him. What was there to be proud of? She was just a broken shoe that he had thrown away. Jiang Tianhao stared at her back as she walked away. He clenched his fists in anger. His hatred for the Ji family, Ji Yuqi, and Yizisu continued to accumulate until it reached its peak. Ji Yuqi didn't take the bait, so Jiang Tianhao had no choice but to take action himself. He presented the evidence of Chen Tingfang and her daughter's evil deeds to Ji Bowen. Ji Bowen's anger turned into forbearance. As long as Chen Tingfang's child was not his, he would immediately divorce her and chase the troublemaker mother and daughter out of the Ji family. Chen Tingfang and her daughter didn't know about it yet. They only cared about fighting and tearing each other down. It was very lively. Ji Bowen was too lazy to care about them. Ji Yuqi couldn't wait for someone to make trouble for Chen Tingfang. Of course, she wouldn't stop them. She could only secretly add fuel to the fire. It was the weekend. Other than Yizisu, everyone was there. Ji Yuqi was bathing the Samyet in the garden. Ji Bowen was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper. Chen Tingfang was sitting beside him watching a Korean drama. She was holding a tissue and crying. Ji Yunhan was playing with his phone. When he heard Chen Tingfang sobbing softly, he curled his lips in disdain. He didn't know what was so good about those tear-jerking dramas. At this moment, Yizisu led a white-haired old doctor into the living room. Everyone looked up at her. She smiled and said, Uncle Ji, Mom, this is Dr. Li. Dr. Li is the most famous Chinese doctor in Ning City. Mom, your pregnancy symptoms have been too severe recently. You can't eat anything. My heart aches when I see you like that, so I specially invited Dr. Li to take a look at you. Chen Tingfang hurriedly wiped the tears off her face and smiled unnaturally. Zisu, I'm very happy that you care so much about me. However, I'm much better now. I don't need to trouble Dr. Lee anymore. How can that be? Pregnancy is a big deal. Moreover, you're at an advanced age. The risk is greater. Don't refuse anymore. Dr. Lee, please take a look at my mom. Yi Zissou invited Dr. Lee to sit opposite Chen Tingfang. Then, she said with a smile, Mom, stretch out your right hand. Let Dr. Lee take your pulse. Chen Tingfang cursed in her heart. If she had known that she had given birth to an ingrate, she would have strangled her to death the moment she was born. There's really no need. I'm a little sleepy. I want to go upstairs and rest for a while. Chen Tingfang had just stood up. Before she could escape, Ji Bowen suddenly said, Tingfang, since Dr. Lee is already here, we can't let him come here for nothing. Let him take your pulse and prescribe some pregnancy medicine for you. Dr. Lee, please. Dr. Lee nodded. Mrs. Ji, please stretch out your right hand. Chen Tingfang was anxious and couldn't find an excuse. She avoided his hand and hurriedly stepped back. Her knee hit the sofa's armrest, and she staggered to the floor. She gritted her teeth and decided to use her arm as a support to fall to the ground. It would be best if she could scratch her skin and make some wounds to fool the doctor. Unexpectedly, a pair of arms firmly supported her back, supporting her entire body. Ji Yuqi's gentle voice came from behind her. Auntie Chen, are you all right? Chen Tingfang's smile was uglier than crying. I'm fine, I'm fine. Fortunately, you're here to support me. That's right. You're pregnant now, so you have to be careful. Ji Yuqi smiled sweetly. Auntie Chen, Dr. Lee has been waiting for you for a long time. Let him take a look at your hand. That's right, Mom. Don't let me down. Yi Zissou was smiling, but in Chen Tingfang's eyes, she was scarier than a venomous snake. Several pairs of eyes were on Chen Tingfang. Under everyone's gaze, she had no choice and no reason to refuse. She could only reach out her trembling hand. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 898. Dr. Lee put his finger on her wrist and closed his eyes to feel it. He opened his eyes slowly and looked helpless. No wonder the lady didn't want to let him take her pulse. He shook his head and said, Mr. G, Mrs. G isn't pregnant. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave. Ji Bowen's expression changed a few times, but he finally calmed down and asked the butler to see the guests out. After Dr. Lee left, the atmosphere in the living room froze. Chen Tingfang felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She wanted to say something, but she swallowed her words when she saw Ji Bowen's dark face. Ji Bowen didn't fly into a rage as Yi Zissou expected, nor did he say anything. Instead, he picked up the phone and called the lawyer to come to the Ji residence. The lawyer was naturally to draft the divorce agreement. Chen Tingfang's face was pale, and she screamed, Bowen, listen to me. I really don't know what's going on. Ji Bowen looked tired. He waved his hand and said, You don't have to say anything. We'll sit down and talk when the lawyer comes. Yi Zissou smiled in satisfaction. She knew that she wouldn't benefit from the divorce between Ji Bowen and Chen Tingfang, but it didn't matter. She just didn't want Chen Tingfang to be comfortable. Why should Xiao Yihan die because of her? Her reputation was ruined because of her, but she was still living comfortably. Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan looked at each other and found an excuse to leave. The siblings each rode a bicycle and walked side by side in the cool autumn wind. Ji Yunhan thought of something and smiled. Sister, you were the one who uploaded the video of Yi Zissou being abused by Jiang Tianhao, right? Where did you find it? Ji Yuqi's long hair fluttered in the wind. She blinked and said with a smile, Of course, I stole it from Chen Tingfang. What do you think? I did a good job of framing her, didn't I? Ji Yunhan held onto the steering wheel with one hand and gave a thumbs up with the other as he smiled. Well done, as expected of my sister. The laughter of the two echoed on the mountain road. The golden leaves danced in the air. The two bicycles leisurely traveled in this fairy tale-like scenery towards the sunset. After the children left, Chen Tingfang followed Ji Bowen into the study. She wanted to save their marriage, but Ji Bowen was determined. He refused to listen to her explanation, and he didn't want to maintain the marriage. The lawyer quickly arrived and said that Chen Tingfang was the one at fault for having an affair. According to the law, the innocent party could ask the guilty party for less or no share of the property. Ji Bowen remembered their old friendship, so he was not so heartless. He proposed to give 30% of all the property to Chen Tingfang and her daughter. This 30% was enough for Chen Tingfang and Yi Zisu to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. However, Chen Tingfang was ambitious and was not satisfied with the division of property. Since both sides had fallen out, she no longer pretended to be gentle and magnanimous. She insisted on sharing the property equally. Of course, Ji Bowen didn't agree. He worked so hard to build the business and wanted to leave it to his daughter and son. How could he give half of it to Chen Tingfang? Chen Tingfang sneered. I've been married to you for so many years. I helped you with the housework, took care of the children, accompanied you to socialize, and helped you open up the business circle. Your achievements today are also due to me. I ask for half of the property. That's what I deserve. Ji Bowen was infuriated by her shameless words. He said angrily, there are so many servants in the house. Since when did you need to do the housework yourself? Take care of the children? Humph, you still have the nerve to mention it. You framed Yuchi and Ahan time and time again. I haven't settled the score with you yet. You play mahjong every day, go shopping, and do beauty treatments. You call that socializing? Don't make people laugh their heads off. I won't give you 30% of the property, not a cent more. Chen Tingfang's face turned green and red after being scolded by him in front of the lawyer. Fortunately, she was thick-skinned and quickly calmed down. She said calmly, okay, since we can't negotiate, let's meet in court. We'll see whose side the judge is on. Ji Bowen was furious. He slammed the table and said, okay, let's meet in court. I'm not afraid of you. Because of the division of property, Ji Bowen and Chen Tingfang completely fell out. The two of them lived under the same roof and saw each other frequently, but they didn't speak more than 3 sentences a day. Yi Zisu was very self-aware. She kept a low profile and no longer hung around the two of them and annoyed them. She went to school during the day and went to nightclubs to pass the time at night. She indulged in a life of luxury and numbed her nerves. She wanted to use this opportunity to forget Xiaoyihan. The pure and innocent goddess of the past was already dead. The one who was alive now was an enchanting demoness who bloomed at night. She wore heavy makeup every day and shuttled through lively bars and nightclubs. She flirted with different people, went on a boat with different people, and woke up in different places. At first, this kind of life made her feel very excited. Slowly, she began to feel empty. It was like a boat that had lost its direction and was drifting in the sea. The man who had once pointed out the direction for her was no longer around. She was left alone in despair. During this period of time, Ji Yuchi's life was very relaxed. Chen Tingfang was busy fighting for property with Ji Bowen, and Yi Zisu was busy indulging in debauchery. For the time being, no one bothered her. Free company was operating well. With Qingsang in charge, she didn't need to spend too much energy. She couldn't be more relaxed. The cold December wind was biting cold. She wrapped herself in an apricot-colored windbreaker and walked to the parking lot. A familiar figure stood beside her car. He had a tall and straight figure, a handsome face, and sexy thin lips as he gazed deeply at her. Like a spring breeze, Ji Yuchi's cold face was immediately adorned with a smile. She quickly walked forward and stretched out her arms to hug him. She leaned her head against his chest. Ah, Ja, I missed you so much. Shenja wrapped her in his arms and kissed her forehead. His magnetic voice was full of warmth. I missed you too. During the 3 days of his business trip, his mind was filled with her. The work that would have taken him 5 days to complete was shortened by him and his subordinates staying up late. They rushed back to her side as quickly as possible. The wind was cold outside, but it was as warm as spring inside the car. Ji-Yuchi sat in the front passenger seat. She leaned her right arm against the car window and tilted her head to look at Shinja. She couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. She secretly mocked herself in her heart. Was this what it meant to be apart for a day? The person she missed had suddenly appeared in front of her. She couldn't help but want to take a few more glances at him. Shinja turned his head to look at her. His deep eyes were full of smiles. I'm off tomorrow. How about we go to Hawaii? Sure. Ji-Yuchi was mesmerized by his beauty and answered without hesitation. Shinja laughed softly. Good girl. Ji-Yuchi seemed to have woken up from a dream. She held her forehead with one hand and said with a headache, I can't. I have class tomorrow. Shinja freed a hand and rubbed her fluffy curly hair. He smiled and said, little fool, you can take the day off. Ji-Yuchi pouted unhappily. But the exams are coming up. I'm worried that the teacher will highlight the important points if I'm absent. It's okay. You can borrow Lin Yushi's class notes. Young Master Shen was like a kind grandmother wolf. He revealed an amiable smile and spared no effort to persuade her. All right, young Master Shen. Seeing that you're so sincere, I, miss, will accompany you overseas to relax. But when we're in Hawaii, you're not allowed to stare at other beautiful women. Beach bikinis and whatnot. They're 2 nosebleeds. Ji-Yuchi counted on her fingers and nagged at a certain someone before they even left the country. Okay. Shinja nodded good-naturedly and said seriously, in my eyes, you're the most beautiful woman. I just have to look at you. Ji-Yuchi smiled. Wow, you really know how to do things. I like it very much. Since you like it so much, is there a reward? The certain someone who was driving pointed at his cheek and glanced at her. His meaning was obvious. Not now. Drive seriously. She knew a certain someone very well. Once she kissed him, it would not be as simple as a kiss. The car drove out of the city and wound around the mountain roads. Finally, it stopped outside the largest cemetery in the suburbs. The weather was gloomy and cold, without a trace of sunlight. The surrounding trees were lush, and it was silent. The cold wind blew, and the leaves rustled. Looking into the distance, there were black tombstones standing neatly in the garden. They could not see the end of the tombstones in a radius of 100 meters. It was eerie and solemn. Shinja held the lilies in one hand and held Ji-Yuchi's hand in the other as they walked on the tree-lined path. He held her hand tightly. His handsome face was cold and his thin lips were pursed tightly. There was grief and indignation in his eyes. Ji-Yuchi felt that something was wrong with him. She patted the back of his hand gently. He turned his head. Her lips were pursed gently. Even without any words, he could feel her comfort. His furrowed brows relaxed, and his tense body slowly relaxed. He held her hand tightly and explained gently, today is the anniversary of my mother's death. Ji-Yuchi pursed her lips coquettishly. You should have told me earlier. Hurry up and help me see if Auntie will like me dressed up like this. With that said, she let go of his hand and twirled in front of him. She looked at him expectantly and even blinked her beautiful eyes as if to say, hurry up and praise me. His heart warmed. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her forehead lovingly. He said softly, this is good. No matter how you dress up, Mom will like you. As long as it was something he liked, his mother would like it. Ji-Yuchi rubbed her cool cheek against his and said in a playful tone, hey, when you see Auntie later, tell her that I bought the lilies. Otherwise, Auntie will definitely think that I'm very immature. Who would casually buy the lilies on their first meeting with their elders? Okay. Shinja's heart was unbelievably soft. This was the first time he had stepped into this cemetery. The hatred in his heart had disappeared, and only warmth was left. Add Songshu 566. Chapter 899. The two of them held hands as they walked down the long path and stopped in front of a black tombstone. The cold tombstone was inlaid with a picture of a young woman. Her features were picturesque and she looked very similar to Shenjia. She was a typical Jiangnan woman, gentle and beautiful. Shenjia squatted down and placed the lilies in front of the tombstone. He stroked the woman's picture with his fingertips and his thin lips curved gently. "Mom, I'm here to see you. The one standing beside me is Yuchi. She's your future daughter-in-law. She bought the lilies for you. Do you like them?" Yuchi's cheeks flushed red. She was just playing around to make him happy. She didn't expect him to say it in front of Mrs. Shin's tombstone. Would he be suspected of deceiving the deceased? She hurriedly squatted beside Shenjia and explained with a smile, "Auntie, Aja actually bought the lilies for you. I was just joking with him. Don't be angry. The next time I come to see you, I'll definitely buy you the most beautiful flowers." Shenjia stared at the woman on the tombstone and a smile appeared in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "Mom, do you see that? Yuchi is a very good girl. You don't have to worry about me anymore." Yuchi's heart was filled with warmth. She patted her chest and promised, "Auntie, don't worry. I'll take good care of Shenjia." Shenjia's heart was as warm as spring. The smile on his lips deepened and he teased, "I should be the one saying that to you." Yuchi thought of her mother and her eyes darkened. She quickly regained her smile. "It doesn't matter who said it. We'll take care of each other anyway." You're right." He ruffled her hair and stood up holding her hand. The two of them stood quietly in front of the tombstone for a long time. It was getting late. Shenjia held her hand and walked out of the tombstone. There were tall trees on both sides of the road. Fallen leaves covered the road like a thin golden carpet. The two of them walked alone, leaving behind a pair of backs that were leaning against each other. On the way home, Shenjia was silent for a long time before he finally spoke. His voice was a little hoarse. "When I was 4 years old, my mother was pregnant with my brother. Just as she was about to give birth, Tao Shireen came with a big belly. She fought with my mother and pushed her to the ground. My mother passed away in labor that night. In less than a month, Shin Jinhao and Tao Shireen. At that time, Tao Shireen came to the door. His mother asked the servant to take him upstairs. He curiously hid on the stairs and peeked. He saw Tao Shireen scolding his mother and even saw her slap his mother. He desperately rushed downstairs, wanting to protect his mother. However, he was pushed to the ground by Tao Shireen. His mother wanted to help him up, but was also pushed by Tao Shireen. The floor was covered with blood. He lay there in a daze, not knowing what to do. The sharp-eyed servant immediately called for an ambulance, but still couldn't save his mother and the child. That pool of blood was like a nightmare that haunted Shenjia throughout his youth. He hated himself and felt that he was the cause of his mother and little brother's death. Coupled with Tao Shireen's mischief, his personality became more and more withdrawn and he was less and less liked by Shin Jianhao. Ever since Tao Shireen's son, Shin Yu, was born, he became the extra in the Shin family. If his grandfather hadn't brought him to live with the Qin family for a year and hired a psychiatrist to give him psychological guidance, he would have become an autistic child. Thinking back to that period of time, Shenjia's eyes became colder and colder. He gripped the steering wheel harder and his whole body burst out with cold hatred. Although Yuchi knew that he didn't get along with Shin Jinhao in her previous life, she didn't know the inside story. Her heart ached and she reached out to touch his face and said softly, "Aja, you're no longer alone in the future. I'll be with you." After a long period of silence, he slowly said, "Okay." His voice was hoarse, but it carried an irresistible firmness. In his deep eyes, the hostility had already dissipated and was buried by cold arrogance and dominance. He would not allow Shin Jinhao to hurt the woman he loved. Hawaii Beach. The blue sky, the blue sea, and the sun was shining brightly. Beauties in bikinis were everywhere on the beach. Some were laughing and playing in groups of 3 or 5, while others were walking with their male companions. Ji Yuchi was lying lazily under a sun umbrella with a glass of fresh orange juice in her hand, enjoying the beautiful leisure time. Behind her was a 5-star hotel in Linhai. At this moment, Shinjo was having a video conference in the hotel room. It couldn't be helped. Who told the company to have a sudden problem? The subordinates didn't dare to act on their own and could only contact the boss. Ji Yuchi finished her orange juice and swam on the beach for half an hour. Shinjo still hadn't come. She thought that since he was in a meeting, she couldn't go back and disturb him. So, she walked into the small bar next to the hotel, intending to enjoy the air conditioning here. Just as she stepped into the door, a gust of cold air hit her. She wasn't used to it and reflexively stopped. She hugged her arms and shivered. The person walking behind her didn't expect her to stop suddenly and almost bumped into her. That person quickly reached out to support her shoulder and apologized in English. Ji Yuchi turned around and said with a smile, "It's okay. It's my fault." When she saw the person's face clearly, the smile on her face froze, and her beautiful phoenix eyes suddenly shrank. The man in front of her was a Chinese, and meeting a Chinese in Hawaii was not a strange thing. What was strange was that the man she met was called Shinyu, and he was Shinja's half-brother. Shinyu and Shinja did not look alike at all. Shinja looked like his mother, Chinualan, while Shinyu looked very much like Shin Jianhao. He was simply a younger version of Shin Jianhao. His facial features were handsome, and his nose bridge was very high. The tip of his nose was slightly hooked downwards, adding a bit of gloominess to his handsome face. Coupled with his eyes that were as sharp as a falcon's, it made him seem even more cold and indifferent. Even though he was smiling, Ji Yuchi still felt that he was sinister and terrifying. She subconsciously raised her guard. While she was sizing up Shinyu, Shinyu was also sizing her up. She was wearing a bohemian dress and a sky-blue straw hat on her head. Her long, seaweed-like curly hair naturally draped over her shoulders. Her facial features were outstanding, and her entire face was breathtaking. As long as one looked at her, it would definitely be unforgettable. The long dress with thin straps revealed her beautiful swan-like neck, exquisite collarbone, and snow-white shoulders. Her entire body exuded the enchanting fragrance of a SHL woman, causing the blood in his body to become restless. She was indeed a rare beauty. No wonder his cheap brother fell in love with her. Shinyu smiled and said in Chinese, "Miss, you're from China, right?" Ji Yuchi's lips curled up, revealing a pleasantly surprised expression. "Yes, I didn't expect you to be from China too." "What a coincidence." Shinyu's smile deepened. "Since we're so fated, can we have a cup of coffee together?" Wouldn't it be too inconvenient?" Ji Yuchi's gaze slid to the woman beside him. She was beautiful and sexy, with hot curves. She was wearing a short black skirt that just wrapped around her buttocks. Seeing Ji Yuchi looking at her, she even put on a show of force and hugged Shinyu's arm. The pair of breasts in front of her chest were tightly pressed against his arm. This scene was so hot that it could cause people to have a nosebleed. Shinyu pulled back his arm without a trace and said in a calm tone, "This is my secretary, Anna. Anna, you can go back to the hotel first." Anna pouted in dissatisfaction. She wanted to act coquettishly and hug his leg, but Shinyu coldly glanced at her. She immediately cowered, quickly bowed her head, and respectfully answered, "Yes." Before leaving, while Shinyu wasn't paying attention, Anna fiercely glared at Ji Yuchi. Obviously, she regarded Ji Yuchi as an imaginary enemy. Ji Yuchi expressed that he was shot even when he was lying down. Shinyu gentlemanly stretched out his arm and made an inviting gesture. "Please." "Thank you." The two chose a seat by the window, where they could see the blue sea, the beautiful coconut trees, and the beautiful bikini scenery on the beach. After ordering the coffee, Shinyu introduced himself in a gentlemanly manner. "I'm Shinyu. What's Mrs.'s name?" Ji Yuchi pretended not to recognize him and reported his name with a smile. Shinyu stirred the coffee in the cup with a small spoon. A faint smile flashed across his cold thin lips. His tone seemed to be a bit ambiguous. Sir, Mrs. name is too estranged. Can I call you Yuchi? Okay, the name is for people to call. Mr. Shen, are you also here to travel? Yuchi felt a chill in her heart. If she didn't intend to probe his purpose, she would be too lazy to pay attention to him. Shinyu shrugged, showing the humor of an English gentleman. You'd better call me Shinyu. Otherwise, I'll mistakenly think that I'm still negotiating with a client. You know, work is squeezing my brain until it's about to explode, so I chose to come here to relax. Yuchi readily called out, Shinyu, and then asked curiously, may I ask what do you do for a living? Shinyu leaned back comfortably on the chair, naturally revealing the temperament of an aristocrat. He smiled faintly. Take a guess. Yuchi held her chin with one hand and frowned as if she was thinking hard. Then, she suddenly realized. Shinyu. This name is so familiar. Don't tell me you're the CEO of the Shin Group, Shinyu? Shinyu nodded slightly. Yes. Yuchi didn't believe him and asked, Ing City's richest man, the second young master of the Shin family? Shinyu nodded again. That's right. Yuchi stirred the coffee uneasily. She looked embarrassed and her tone was a little flustered. I didn't expect to meet you here. Shinyu's gaze turned cold. He automatically interpreted her behavior as a guilty conscience because her relationship with Shinjo was still a secret. His lips moved. Just as he was about to speak, she suddenly stood up in a panic and said anxiously, I'm sorry, I suddenly remembered something important. I have to hurry back to the hotel. Shinyu grabbed her wrist and stared at her with his deep eyes. There was some doubt in his expression. Yuchi, you seem to be afraid of me? No, I really have something to do. I have to go back. Please let go of me. This time, her expression became flustered, as if she had done something wrong. Awesome novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 900. Shinyu narrowed his eyes. He was certain that she must be afraid that he would find out about her relationship with Shinja. He didn't expect that someone as smart as Shinja would find such a stupid woman who only had beauty but no brains. His mind raced as he tried to figure out how to pry Shinja's secret from her. Unexpectedly, a strong gust of wind rushed towards his cheek. He quickly dodged, but the furious fist still brushed past his cheek. The huge force made him lose his balance and his leg hit the chair next to him, making a loud noise and shocking the guests in the bar. Shinja's handsome figure stood in front of Shinyu. He protected Yuchi behind him and stared at Shinyu with his sharp eyes. His cold voice sent chills down Shinyu's spine. I'm warning you, don't you dare have any ideas about Yuchi. Otherwise, I won't let you off. Shinyu touched his cheek. He swore that it must be swollen. Damn it, he was just careless and got hit by that lunatic. Shinyu retracted his hand hatefully. His malicious eyes flashed with a sinister light. It seems that your taste isn't very good. This woman can't even compare to Aisha. He took a step forward and leaned close to Shinja's ear. His low voice was cold. Do you still remember her? Cute little Aisha. Aisha. Yuchi had never heard of this name. She turned her head instinctively and looked at Shinja. She saw that his face was extremely gloomy and his deep eyes were surging with anger. He squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. Shut up, you don't deserve to mention her name. Shinyu stepped back and tidied up his clothes slowly. He said casually, don't forget what happened to Aisha. He paused for a moment before shifting his gaze to Yuchi. A charming, gentlemanly smile appeared on his face. Yuchi, anyone who has anything to do with Shinja will never have a good ending. Why don't you consider throwing yourself into my arms? The corner of Yuchi's mouth twitched. She didn't want to talk to him, but she felt Shinja tighten his grip on her hand. She shook his hand back and raised her chin proudly. Sir, please call me Miss G. We're not familiar with each other. Of course, if you're willing to act like a younger brother, I'll allow you to call me sister-in-law. Yu's eyes narrowed and he smiled sinisterly. I didn't expect you to have such a sharp tongue. Interesting, I suddenly feel like I'm starting to like you. The anger in Yu's eyes intensified and a violent aura erupted from his body. He pulled Yuchi into his arms and announced in a domineering manner, Yuchi is my fiancé. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll consider making you unable to speak again. Yu shrugged his shoulders and smiled gently. Alright, it's just a joke. Why are you so serious about it? I'm actually not interested in your baby at all. You know that I like women with big breasts and perky butts. Alright, you guys have fun. As he spoke, he reached out to pat Shinja's shoulder. Shinja hugged Yuchi and quickly dodged. The disgust in his eyes was undisguised. Yu didn't take it seriously. He shrugged his shoulders and called the waiter to settle the bill with great grace. Shinja's tense body only relaxed after his figure disappeared from the bar entrance. He held Yuchi's shoulder and frowned slightly. Did he hurt you? No, don't be nervous. Yuchi glanced at the people around and said softly, there are so many people here. Let's go back to the hotel. When they returned to the hotel, the first thing Shinja did was to wipe Yuchi's right wrist with a wet towel. Yu had just touched that place. The man sitting in front of her lowered his eyebrows. Every movement was careful, afraid of hurting her. She suddenly felt very guilty and whispered, I'm sorry, Aja. He was too fast just now and I didn't have time to avoid it. Shinja paused and looked up at her. There was no reproach on his handsome face and his gaze was very gentle. It's too dirty to be scratched by that kind of person. As if afraid that she would misunderstand, he hesitated and said, he has many women. Who knows if there are any germs on his hands? Yuchi's gloominess was swept away and she was almost amused by him. Ridiculing Yu like this was really too ruthless. As expected of her, Shinja. Oh, so cute. I like him more and more. She stared at his handsome face with a burning gaze and a bold thought of kissing him suddenly appeared in her heart. Her heart moved at will. Since she liked him, why should she hide it? She suddenly threw herself into his arms. Because her movements were too fierce, she directly pushed him onto the sofa. She pressed him under her body and wrapped her arms around his neck. Her clear black and white eyes were as bright as the stars in the sky, flickering with an enchanting flame that made people gasp in admiration. Chi. Shoo, don't talk. She raised a finger and placed it on his lips. She lowered her head slightly and kissed his forehead. Her soft lips slowly moved downwards like a beautiful butterfly, lightly resting on his thin lips. His Chi, for the first time, took the initiative. Shinja happily hugged her tightly. Even if she wanted to go back on her words, it was already too late. He took the initiative and his wet and hot tongue drilled into her mouth, extremely gentle. After a while, she laid on his chest and her slightly swollen red lips rubbed against his cheek. She whispered in his ear, Aja, I love you so much. This was the first time she had said those words seriously. Shinja's heart melted. He suddenly understood why it was said in the books that couples like to say those words to each other. It was because it was a wonderful feeling. It was as if he suddenly had the whole world and his heart was filled with joy. He didn't care about the prosperity of the world and only wanted to be with her until the end of time. He hugged her tightly, as if he wanted to rub her into his body and never separate again. He kissed her hair and she obediently laid in his arms. The atmosphere was so warm and sweet. She really wanted to stay like this forever, hugging each other. Unfortunately, that was not realistic. Shinja suddenly heard a strange, gulu-gulu sound. He could not help but laugh. He kissed her forehead and said dotingly, Are you hungry? What do you want to eat? Yuchi's cheeks flushed red. She pouted and said, Don't laugh at me. I haven't eaten Japanese food in a long time. How about we eat Japanese food? It was pointless to ask this question. As long as she liked it, Shinja would never reject it. After asking the hotel staff about the nearest Japanese restaurant, Shinja drove her out. Ji-Yuchi sneaked a glance at Shinja, who was driving seriously. Her fingers scratched the seat. She had many questions in her heart. She really wanted to ask, but she was worried that it would bring back sad memories. She was really conflicted. Shinja had already noticed her little movements. He helplessly raised the corner of his lips and said gently, "Is there anything you want to ask?" Ji-Yuchi's eyes lit up. "Can I?" Shinja smiled dotingly. "There's no need for secrets between us. Ask whatever you want." She asked carefully, "Aja, can you tell me who Aisha is?" She noticed that when she asked this question, Shinja's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The atmosphere suddenly froze. She was very uneasy and thought that she had stepped on a minefield. She hurriedly said, "It's okay. It's okay if you don't want to tell me. I'm just a little curious. I won't think too much, really, ouch." She felt like slapping herself. Wasn't this just giving herself away? She laughed dryly. She was so annoyed that she did not dare to look at him. He would definitely think that she was a petty woman. "Chi-Chi, Ji-Yuchi responded in a muffled voice. She turned her head out of the car window and did not look at him. She was angry at her own clumsiness. There was a hint of helplessness and a hint of heaviness in his tone. "It's not that I don't want to tell you. I'm just thinking about how to say it." Ji-Yuchi turned around and looked at him in a daze. He reached out and stroked her hair comfortingly. He quickly retracted his hand and looked ahead. It was as if he was looking back through the sky outside the car window. He slowly said, "Before I turned 18, I lived in the Shin family. At that time, only 3 people were good to me. One was Uncle Lin, the other was the driver, Uncle Zhao, and the last one was Uncle Zhao's daughter, Aisha. Aisha was 2 years younger than me. She was very lively and liked to play with me. At that time, I hated women. I didn't even treat Aisha well. However, she didn't give up and kept calling me brother behind my back." At this point, he pursed his lips and looked terrible. Later, I don't know where Shinyu heard the rumors that Aisha liked me. He started to pursue Aisha, causing her to distance herself from me. After half a year, he finally got her. Not long after, I went abroad. Later, I heard that Aisha had aborted a child because of him. Of course, he couldn't marry her. Shinja gripped the steering wheel tightly. His knuckles were slightly white and his face was frighteningly cold. He slowly told the story. In the end, Aisha slit her wrist and committed suicide. Before she died, she gave me a call. She said, "Brother Shinja, Shinyu has never loved me. He pursued me because he wanted to take away what belonged to you." His eyes were cold and fierce. He said word by word, "Since we were young, he liked to take away my things. I don't care about other things, but Aisha is innocent. So, I hate him." Ji-Yuchi had long known that Shinyu's character was bad, but she didn't know it was bad to this extent. She cursed Shinyu in her heart for being shameless. She felt vexed and said guiltily, "I'm sorry, Aja. I didn't expect things to be like this." If she had known, she would never have asked. Because of her curiosity, she brought up Shinja's sad story. She felt that she was too much. The past is the past. I've already let it go. Why do you have to take it to heart? Shinja caressed her cheek and said gently, "I know what you're worried about, Chi-Chi. In my life, you're the only woman. There was no one else in the past and there won't be anyone else in the future. Aisha was just a little sister to me. I have to bear some responsibility for her death. I feel sorry for her, but I don't love her. Do you understand?" Welfare, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 901. His heartfelt words made Ji-Yuchi both moved and embarrassed. Her clear black and white eyes stared at him. "Aja, you are also my one and only. In the future, I will never let my imagination run wild again. Good girl. Just then, the car arrived at the destination. Shenju stopped the car by the roadside, leaned close to her, kissed the corner of her lips, and then took her into his arms. His fingers tightened around her, and his voice was calm. Shenyu is very dangerous. No matter what method he uses to get close to you, don't believe him. I know. I originally wanted to get some information from him today, so I agreed to have tea with him. In the future, I will definitely stay as far away from him as possible. Shenyu was a proud and arrogant person who always looked down on women. So just now, she deliberately showed a very stupid look, making him completely uninterested. That way, he would not care about her. Shenju rubbed her hair in appreciation. That's right. In the future, stay away from him. If he comes close to you again, tell me immediately. I will help you beat him up. Shenyu, who was despised by the two of them, was currently in the hotel with Anna. Of course, Anna was not his secretary, but one of his lovers. After a while, Anna coquettishly leaned into Shenyu's embrace, her fingertips drawing circles on his chest. She acted coquettishly. Darling, have you taken a fancy to that woman? Which woman? Shenyu's eyes were cold, and his cold handsome face was dyed with a stern look. Unfortunately, Anna did not sense the danger at all, and said to herself, it's the woman I met at the entrance of the bar. Although she looks passable, her figure is too bad, like a washboard. She rattled on and on about Ji Yuqi's shortcomings. Shenyu's face grew darker and darker, almost as dark as the bottom of a pot. He abruptly pushed her away and got off the ground. He tied the towel around his waist and coldly said, go back to your country immediately and never appear in front of me again. Anna was startled. She did not care that she was not wearing anything and immediately jumped down to hug him tightly. She repeatedly said, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I will never ask about those women again. Please, don't drive me away. Scram. Shenyu violently pushed her away. She screamed and fell to the ground. Her jade body was sprawled across the ground, giving her a different kind of charm. But Shenyu only coldly swept a glance at her and curled his lips in ridicule. To him, women were only used to vent his lust. He would allow smart women to stay by his side for a while longer. As for stupid women, of course he would throw them away as soon as possible. He pulled out his arm mercilessly, and his eyes were like a venomous snake's. Don't make me say it again. Get back to your country right now. Anna was shocked by his fierce eyes. She was just a small actress who wanted to use Shenyu to climb up the ranks. She didn't expect to be dumped by him after only being with him for half a month. How could she be reconciled? She covered her face and cried. Her mouth kept saying things like, I love you so much, don't abandon me. Shenyu sneered and nodded. Good, very good, you don't have to leave. Anna was secretly delighted and cried even harder. She played the role of a woman who was deeply in love with someone who was tortured. Shenyu looked at her with disdain and turned to walk into the living room. Soon, Anna heard him talking on the phone. 13, come to my room. 13 was a tall man wearing a black suit. His face was like a poker card, without the slightest expression. He respectfully bowed to Shenyu. Mister, what are your orders? Shenyu raised his chin in Anna's direction and lightly said, that woman is yours. You can do whatever you want with her. 13's calm eyes immediately lit up. He was like a ferocious wolf that had caught its prey. A dangerous aura came from him as he walked towards Anna with steady steps. Anna was stunned. She even forgot to cry. She uneasily retreated and shook her head in panic. No, Mr. Shen, I'm willing to return to my country. I'll return to my country immediately. Shenyu turned his head and revealed a nasty smile. Unfortunately, it's too late. No, Mr. Shen, I beg you, let me go. It's my fault. I'll leave immediately and never appear in front of you again. Ah! Anna, whose wrist was being held by 13, screamed out in pain. Shenyu frowned in disgust. 13, gag her mouth and take her away immediately. Yes. 13 responded and fiercely hit Anna on the back of her neck. She softly collapsed in his arms. He picked her up horizontally and quickly disappeared through the door. 13 had a tyrannical tendency and was very good at playing with women. He once played with the daughter of a triad leader to death. He was chased everywhere. It was Shinyu who saved him. In order to repay Shinyu, he became his personal bodyguard. Although 13 had restrained himself in recent years, his methods were still very cruel. Even if Anna wasn't killed by him, a layer of skin would be peeled off. This was the consequence of disobeying Shinyu. He expressionlessly glanced at the messy bedroom and walked into the bathroom bare-chested. In the afternoon, it was already night in China. The big screen hanging on the wall was connected and projected Shin Jinhao's figure. His face was very similar to Shinyu's. He frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Ah, you're too mischievous. How can you take a vacation just like that? A lot of people in the company are watching you." Shinyu's upper body was naked and a towel was wrapped around his waist. He leaned against the back of the chair and wiped his hair with a towel in his hand. He lazily said, "Dad, I'm not joking. Do you know why I chose Hawaii? It's because my good brother is here." He deliberately dragged out the words, "good brother." Sure enough, he saw Shin Jinhao's face change color. Humph, didn't that bastard say he was discussing business abroad? Why did he run to Hawaii? Shinyu sneered, "What business?" "The business was settled 2 days ago. He's using the business as an excuse to go on a date with a woman." Shin Jinhao frowned. "Is it that little girl from the Ji family?" "Yes, her name is Ji Yuchi, the most precious daughter of the CEO of the Ji Group. I can see that Shinja likes her very much." A sharp light flashed in Shinyu's eyes and his lips curled into an evil smile. "Dad, what do you think if I steal his precious woman?" Shin Jinhao was very satisfied with his second son. The only thing he didn't like was that his private life was too messy. Fortunately, it wasn't a big problem and he never interfered. However, when his second son interfered in Shinja's relationship, he still had some concerns. He disagreed. "Since you know that he treasures that woman very much, why do you deliberately provoke him? He's not that weak youth who has nothing." Shin Jinhao thought about how after Shinja returned to China, he quickly implemented several new policies and replaced a large number of middle and high-level management in the Shin group. He and you were exhausted and had a headache. Shinyu touched his cheek where Shinja had punched him and sneered, "It's because of this that I want to step on his sore spot." He still clearly remembered how sad Shinja was when he found out about Isha's death. Even if Shinja armed himself with indifference, the memory of his heavy punch on the tombstone and the bleeding back of his hand was still fresh in Shinyu's mind. Shin Jinhao shook his head and reminded, "Be careful not to step on his sore spot. Instead, he'll cripple your feet." "Dad, in your eyes, am I so useless that I can't compare to that madman?" Even in front of his father, Shinyu didn't shy away from calling Shinja a madman. In the eyes of everyone in the Shin family, Shinja was a madman. Shinja was in poor health when he was young and often fell ill. Once he fell ill, he was like a different person. No, to be precise, he was like a dangerous beast. He kicked and bit anyone who came close to him. Shinja's appearance was similar to Shin Jinhao's deceased ex-wife. His face always reminded Shin Jinhao of the ugly things he had done in the past. In addition, Tao Shirin always spoke ill of Shinja in his ear. Gradually, he began to hate Shinja. It was too late to avoid him, so why would he investigate why Shinja went crazy when he fell ill? It only made him hate Shinja more. Shin Jinhao recalled Shinja's crazy appearance when he was young. His brows were tightly knitted together as he unhappily said, "Don't mention that unfilial son again. Whenever he's mentioned, my heart feels uncomfortable." Instead of dealing with a woman, I advise you to focus on the company's affairs. "I know, Dad. I know what I'm doing." "Well, I won't talk to you anymore. It's already very late in the country. You should rest early." After cutting off the conversation, Shinyu threw his whole body into the soft sofa and threw the towel on the coffee table. His slender fingers tapped on the sofa's armrest. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. He said in fluent English, "Find a few people to help me do something." The night on the island was very charming. The bright lights shrouded the sapphire-like sea. The bars on the coast were colorful and lively. Although Shinyu's purpose was unknown, it did not affect Ji Yuchi's mood of vacation. She and Shinja interlocked their fingers and happily strolled on the beach. They danced with the enthusiastic locals and their laughter flew in the night. Just as they were returning to the hotel and passing by a bar, 6 or 7 foreign men dressed like hooligans rushed out of the hotel and blocked their way. Among the group, 2 people pointed at each other's noses and cursed. Some of the other people were watching a good show and some tried to persuade them to stop. However, the 2 people who were cursing at each other seemed to be angry. Not only did they not stop cursing, but it escalated to a fight of fists and feet. The scene was instantly chaotic. The people on both sides were in a melee. They took out their weapons one after another. Daggers, electric batons, and even beer bottles were taken out. They were fighting fiercely. Shinjo was worried about being affected. He hugged Ji Yuchi's waist tightly and planned to pass by. At this moment, someone in the group of people who were fighting suddenly shouted in English, "Stop fighting. Isn't it just for a woman? Everyone look, there's a beautiful Asian girl over there." Beauty novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 902. As soon as these words came out, the people fighting stopped and turned their eyes to Ji Yuchi. Although Shinja blocked her and they couldn't see her face, her graceful figure was enough to make men daydream. Someone immediately echoed, "Don't let that chick run away. You, Asian man, put that chick down and I'll spare your life." A burly man holding a dagger raised his chin and stared at Shinja in disdain. Shinja didn't want to meddle in other people's business, but he didn't expect trouble to come knocking on his door. He coldly glanced at those people and spat out a word, "Get lost. F***ck, I'm going to get that chick today." The man roughly spat and waved his dagger as he pounced forward. Shinja protected Ji Yuchi and took a step back. He stretched out his long leg and kicked the man away. Another 2 men pounced forward. They didn't see how Shinja made his move and the 2 men flew out one after another. A bearded man quietly came from behind, intending to grab Ji Yuchi to threaten Shinja. Unexpectedly, Shinja's eyes were like torches and had already seen through his trick. He said with a calm face, "Chi-Chi, lower your head." Ji Yuchi quickly lowered her head. Shinja's fist brushed past her head and hit the bearded man's chin. Ji Yuchi clearly heard the sound of bones breaking. The bearded man held his chin and screamed in pain. The others weren't any better. They were all injured and lying on the floor, groaning and groaning. A man among the wounded quietly took out a silencer and aimed it at Shinja's head. Ji Yuchi followed Shinja and walked for a distance. She inadvertently looked back and saw the black muzzle of a gun. The blood in her body suddenly turned cold. "Be careful." Her voice became sharp because of the urgency. At the same time, she shook off Shinja's arm and blocked his back as fast as she could. Bang! A gunshot sounded. Shinja's heart almost stopped. He quickly turned around and held Ji Yuchi in his arms, exposing his entire back to the killer's shooting range. He didn't care about his own safety. His body slightly trembled from fear and his eyes were filled with panic. He anxiously called out, "Chi-Chi. I'm fine, don't worry." Ji Yuchi's heart was filled with fear. At that moment, she really thought she was dead. She didn't expect that before the killer could pull the trigger, a bullet would shoot out of nowhere and hit the killer's forehead. "Ah, someone's dead. Run." The group of injured people lying on the ground got up in a hurry and scattered as fast as they could. Soon, only a corpse was left behind. It was the man who wanted to assassinate Shinja. He was lying on the ground with a hole in his forehead. Blood was gurgling out of the hole. He was still holding a pistol in his hand. His eyes that had lost their luster were staring straight at Shinja's direction. A man in a black trench coat walked out of the alley majestically. He was tall and straight and his face was cold and indifferent. He said in a deep voice, "Young master, Ling has already chased after those who escaped. Maybe we can get some information from them." Shenja nodded slightly. Zhe, your marksmanship is not bad. Thank you for just now. If Zhe hadn't hidden in the surroundings to protect him and Yuchi, he would have shot the killer and Yuchi would have been injured. If that had happened, he would never be able to forgive himself. Zhe had followed Shenja for so many years, but this was the first time he heard the words, "thank you," from him. His lips curved stiffly. One look and one could tell that he wasn't used to smiling. The tips of his ears were tinged with a faint shade of red. He coughed and said, "This is what I should do." "Young master, you don't have to be so polite." After Zhe appeared, Yuchi withdrew from Shenja's arms. However, he insisted on holding her hand. She smiled sincerely. Zhe, I also want to thank you. If it wasn't for your godly marksmanship, I probably wouldn't be able to stand and talk to you. Zhe's ears turned even redder. His eyes flickered. Miss G is too polite. If the two of you don't have any orders, I'd better hide in the dark. On the balcony of the hotel, a man in a shirt and trousers stood in the night sky. He held a pair of binoculars in his hand and took in the fighting on the street. He snorted coldly. Wilson's men are really useless. 7 of them can't even defeat a lunatic. Behind him stood the cold-faced bodyguard, 13. "Second young master, if you want to take Shinja's life, why don't you let me do it?" 13 was very confident in his skills. He was one of the top assassins in Asia. Shinyu tossed the binoculars to him and said calmly, "I don't want to take his life now. I asked Wilson to find those good-for-nothings to play the hero saving the damsel in distress. Unfortunately, the people Wilson found were too useless. They were all killed in seconds by Shinja before it was my turn. If the plan succeeded, Yuchi would see the man she liked being beaten down by others. She was about to be humiliated. At this time, Shinyu descended from the sky and saved her like a god. How could she not be moved by him? Shinyu's lips curled up in ridicule. Those foolish and ignorant women, chasing after love was only because the other party could satisfy their vanity and satisfy their dreams of becoming a hero. They liked powerful men, where was there any true love? Just as Shinyu sneered at women, Shinja and Yuchi had already returned to the hotel. The eldest young master, who had been holding back for a long time, finally exploded. He let go of Yuchi's hand with a cold face and left her alone. He opened the door without a word. Yuchi was like a wronged little wife, pitifully following behind him. When he walked to the bedroom, she followed. When he went to the cloakroom to get a bathrobe, she followed. When he went into the bathroom, she also wanted to follow. The eldest young master blocked her at the door with a cold face. He exuded an air of, "I'm very unhappy," and said coldly, "Why are you following me?" The eldest young master, who was throwing a tantrum, was finally willing to talk to her. Yuchi was so touched that tears streamed down her face. She quickly reached out and grabbed his sleeve. She pouted pitifully and said softly, "Aja, don't be angry. I was wrong. Don't ignore me." The little woman in front of him stared at him with her big watery eyes. Her red lips were pouted, and her expression was pitiful. Shenja's heart softened. However, when he thought of the dangerous situation just now, his expression became uglier. He said coldly, "You still know that you were wrong. Tell me, what did you do wrong?" Yuchi blinked her big eyes and said softly, "I shouldn't have stood in front of you when you were in danger." Shinja's face was still stiff. He said in a deep voice, "You know that you were wrong? You're not allowed to do such dangerous things in the future. No matter when, as long as you're in danger, all you have to do is protect yourself. Do you hear me?" This was the first time he had spoken to her in such a strict tone. She didn't feel sad or angry, but she felt her heart ache. She clearly knew that when he had hugged her, his body had trembled slightly. That was the fear of losing her. She was also afraid of losing him, so how could she only care about protecting herself when he was in danger? Even though he didn't get the answer he wanted, Shinja didn't give up. He stubbornly stared into her eyes, as if he wanted to see through her organs and intimidate her soul. He was in a deadlock with her at the bathroom door just for an answer, or rather, a promise. Ji-Yuchi bit her lips and suddenly threw herself into his arms. She leaned her head against his chest and said slowly, "Aja, if you're in danger, I can't turn a blind eye to it." Shinja's body stiffened. Just as he was about to say something, she raised her head and covered his mouth with her hand. She continued, "Don't be anxious. Let me finish. Aja, I want to face the danger with you. I want to stand by your side. I don't want to be a naive little girl who is well protected by you. However, I promise that I won't be so rash again. Aja, I'm done. If you're still angry, you can scold me." Her clear eyes were filled with uneasiness. She was like a child who had done something wrong and was waiting for her parents to criticize her. His feelings were very complicated. He had always known that she was different from ordinary people. He could tolerate and give her the greatest freedom in other things, but when it came to her personal safety, he couldn't easily compromise. He was silent for a moment and slowly pushed her away from his arms. He said, "I can't agree. I'm a man. I don't need my woman to protect me from danger." She tugged at his sleeve. "Aja, get out. I'm going to take a shower." He pulled his sleeve out of her hand and stroked her hair. His tone was very gentle and his expression could be said to be gentle, but she just felt that he was angry. The sound of water splashing could be heard from the bathroom. Ji-Yuchi was a little frustrated as she rolled around on the bed. What was wrong with her wanting to protect the person she loved? But he wasn't wrong either. He also wanted to protect her, so whose fault was it? Ji-Yuchi lay on her side, facing the window. Before she knew it, the corners of her eyes were wet. She hurriedly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and laughed self-deprecatingly. Shinja really spoiled her rotten. She actually started to cry like a delicate girl. This was a bad habit. She had to change it. However, she didn't expect that Shinja had already seen her wiping her tears. Shinja stood at the head of the bed. Because of his height, even though Ji-Yuchi's back was facing him, he could still see her secretly wiping her tears. His heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. It was so uncomfortable that it was about to explode. He clenched his fingers and gripped the towel in his hand tightly. His expression was as cold as an iceberg. Back then, when she said, "Shinja, let's be together," he felt that the whole world was bright. He only had one thought in his heart, which was to love her and treat her well. He couldn't let her cry anymore. But now, he still made her cry. Awesome novel. Songshu 566. Chapter 903. Ji-Yuchi suddenly felt a warmth on her back. She was pressed tightly against a warm body. A pair of arms wrapped around her waist and hugged her tightly. She was afraid that he would discover that she had cried, so she rubbed her eyes to make sure that everything was normal. Then, she said gently, "Aja, you're done bathing?" He didn't make a sound and hugged her tightly. His chest was pressed against her back, and there was no space between them. He buried his head in her hair and breathed softly. She placed her hand on the back of his hand and said softly, "Aja? I'm sorry, Chi-Chi." He finally spoke. His voice was low and hoarse, and every word was said very seriously. "When you stood in front of me and faced the gun, you must have been very scared. I was still so fierce to you. I'm sorry." The eyes that had just shed tears seemed to tear up again very easily. Ji-Yuchi sniffed. Shinja must have done it on purpose to make her cry again. How could he be so good to her? It was over. She really wanted to cry again. She didn't cry again. Instead, she turned around and lifted her chin. She pressed her cool lips against his and used the tip of her tongue to gently trace the shape of his lips. She kissed him very seriously, and he was also intoxicated in this easy kiss. It wasn't until their breathing became unstable that they slowly separated. She leaned against his ear and said softly, you don't have to say sorry. We didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. They just loved each other too much. Since they loved each other so much, why should they care about such small things? Ji-Yuchi hated Shinyu very much, especially when he suddenly appeared when she and Shinja were happily enjoying lunch. Moreover, he sat at their table as if they were familiar with each other. It was really annoying. Big brother, Yuchi, what a coincidence. You're also here to eat. Shinyu didn't seem to see that Shinja and Chi-Chi didn't welcome him. After sitting down, he even used a very familiar tone to chat with them. Oh, I can't stand it. Ji-Yuchi couldn't help but ridicule in her heart. Then she raised her head and looked at Shinja. Seeing that Shinja was still helping her peel the prawn shell very seriously and didn't intend to pay attention to Shinyu, she calmed down, lowered her eyelashes, and continued to eat the prawn meat on the plate. The smile on Shinyu's face stiffened. The two people sitting opposite him, one was seriously peeling the prawn shell, and the other was seriously eating the prawn meat. Both of them ignored him. He was the dignified second young master of the Chin family. When had he ever been thrown in the face like this? He gritted his teeth and put on a fake smile. Big brother, when do you plan to return to China? The company can't do without you. Shinja glanced at him and said coldly, compared to a vice president like me, the company is even more inseparable from the president. Well done. Ji-Yuchi almost couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her shoulders shook suspiciously a few times. The smile on Shinyu's face froze. In his mind, he imagined using a dagger to stab Shinja until he was drenched in blood. He raised an eyebrow and turned his gaze to Ji-Yuchi. He said warmly, Yuchi, I heard that you haven't graduated from university yet. What do you want to do after graduation? Do you want to come to the Shin group to train? Ji-Yuchi really didn't want to pay attention to him, but he was all smiles and it seemed impolite to ignore him. Thus, she raised her head and revealed a polite smile. No need, thank you, President Shen. Oh, right, do you eat prawns? After saying that, she directly grabbed an unpeeled prawn and handed it to him. She smiled and said, try it. The spicy prawns here are very delicious. Shinyu looked at the red prawn in front of him, which was tightly held in her hand. His whole person was not good. The corner of his mouth twitched as he said, no need, thank you. Don't be polite. Try it. It's very delicious. Ji-Yuchi's hand stretched forward again. The prawn almost touched his nose. The smile on her face was very sincere, but the little devil in her heart was laughing evilly. Eat it, eat it. When you finish the first bite, I'll tell you that I actually didn't wash my hands after going to the toilet. Most rich young masters were a little misophobic. She didn't believe that she couldn't disgust Shinyu. Unfortunately, Shinyu didn't do as she wished. He regretfully shook his head and said, thank you for your kindness, but I'm allergic to seafood. Ji-Yuchi's eyes moved slightly. She put the prawn back on the plate and smiled faintly. So you're allergic to seafood. What a pity. Shinyu's lips curved slightly. Just as he was about to say something, Shinja's frosty gaze turned to him. That group of people last night, it was you who arranged it, right? It wasn't a question, but a statement. Shinyu's eyes darkened, but he still smiled faintly. Big brother, what do you mean by that? You don't have to play dumb. What you did is done. In front of so many people, I won't do anything to you. Shinja put the peeled prawn on the plate in front of Ji-Yuchi. He slowly wiped his fingers with a wet towel. His movements were extremely elegant. When he said this, he didn't look at Shinyu. He just seriously did his own thing, as if Shinyu didn't exist. Shinyu hated this attitude of his the most. No matter if he got his father's praise, took away the things he liked, or got the position of CEO, or even took away all his glory and drove him out of the Shin family, he always had an indifferent expression. He wouldn't look at him more than once, as if nothing could affect his mood. After so many years, he was still like this, treating him like nothing. Shinyu was very angry, but he had already learned to control his emotions. He smiled faintly and said, "You're talking about you and Yuchi being blocked by drunkards last night? That matter really has nothing to do with me. Big brother, no matter what, we're brothers. How could I do such a thing? That kind of thing, you've done a lot in the past." Shenja's voice was calm. As he spoke, he leaned closer to Yuchi and wiped the oil stains on her lips with a tissue. When he first came back from the United States, he was assassinated by the killers sent by Shinyu. After he was injured, he met Yuchi in the small forest. Thinking of the first time they met, Shinja couldn't help but smile. He also rubbed Yuchi's cheek with his finger. Shinyu's face was very ugly. He wanted to flip the table and go berserk. Shinja, that lunatic, if he wanted to talk, then he should seriously look at him and talk. Why did he keep showing affection in front of him? Showing affection was a very shameful thing to do. If he stayed any longer, he might not be able to control himself. Shinyu made a rational choice. He suddenly stood up and said with a sullen face, "I have something to do. I'll take my leave first. You guys eat slowly." The foodie Yuchi raised her head and smiled innocently. "Take care. I won't send you off." "But second young master Shen, you haven't eaten yet, right? Don't tell me you came to the restaurant to buy soy sauce?" Shinyu's face turned green from her teasing. He said stiffly, "I'm not hungry." "Oh, so it's like that. Goodbye then." Yuchi smiled and waved. It would be best if they never met again. "You seem to be very reluctant to part with him?" The jealous young master Shen's tone was sour. He peeled another shrimp for her. Yuchi made a face. "No, I'm stabbing him with a dagger in my heart. I've already stabbed him until he's covered in blood." "Oh, well done." Young Master Shen smiled contentedly. He bent down and kissed her on the cheek as a reward. She blushed and looked around guiltily. When she saw that no one was paying attention, she relaxed. She suddenly thought of something and smiled mischievously. Shinyu said that he's allergic to seafood. Is that true?" Shinja thought about it seriously. "Maybe it's true." "What do you mean maybe? You've lived under the same roof for so many years. Why don't you know him at all?" Shinja rubbed his chin. "Although we live under the same roof, we rarely eat at the same table. Even when we eat together, we don't pay attention to what he likes to eat. However, it's true that the Shin family's kitchen rarely cooks seafood." "Oh, then the possibility that he's allergic to seafood is quite high." Yuchi's charming eyes were extremely bright. She suddenly leaned in front of him and asked with a mischievous smile, "Does Shinyu like to go to nightclubs?" Shinja nodded. He paused and said, "I think I know what you're going to do. You're so smart. There's a reward for you, dear." Yuchi looked around. When no one was paying attention, she quickly kissed him on the cheek. The oil on her lips smeared all over Shinja's face. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She stuck out her tongue mischievously. As she helped him wipe his face, she said, "He must have hired those people last night. If I don't teach him a lesson, how can I get rid of the hatred in my heart?" You won't stop me, right?" He pinched her nose lovingly. "Do whatever you want. But be careful." Night fell. The busiest bar in Hawaii. Men and women of all colors gathered here. They swayed their waists wildly to the deafening electronic music and danced wildly under the blurred lights. People who were keen on emotional games lurked in the crowd. Once they found a target, they would chase after it. "Hey, handsome, are you alone?" A slender and fair hand gently rested on Shinyu's shoulder. It was a very beautiful blonde. She wore a red halter dress that hugged her hips and low cut. She had a pair of emerald cat eyes that made people who looked into her eyes involuntarily sink into them. It was a pity that her aura was too heavy and Shinyu didn't like it. He glanced at her indifferently. Sorry, I'm not interested. Well, that's a pity. I hope you have a good night. The blonde left with a regretful expression. Shinyu raised his eyebrows and continued to drink. Suddenly, he felt someone bump into his arm. He turned his head unhappily and saw an Asian girl wearing a waiter's uniform. She held a tray in her hand and stood in front of him with a flushed face. She kept bowing and said in heavily accented English, "Sorry, I'm very sorry. I was bumped into by someone just now. That's why I bumped into you. I'm really sorry." When the girl lowered her head, Shinyu just happened to see the beautiful curve of her neck. Her fair skin was as tender and smooth as cream. He could also see the faint ravine on her chest when she bent over. His throat was dry and his body was a little hot. He had never been the kind of man who could control his desires. He reached out and lifted the girl's chin, carefully examining her appearance. Attention, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 904. She was elegant and beautiful without makeup, and her body exuded a faint fragrance. She could be given 8 points. The girl was shocked by his bold action. Her cheeks became redder and redder like a tomato. She stammered, Sir. Can you let go of me? Her skin was as smooth as he imagined. He didn't let go of her. Instead, he rubbed her chin and asked in Japanese, "Are you Japanese?" The girl's eyes lit up. She replied in Japanese, "Yes, sir." "How did you know?" Shinyu smiled, "When you speak English, you have a Tokyo accent." "What's your name?" The girl shyly lowered her eyes. "My name is Junko. I'm an international student from Tokyo. My English is very poor. I've made a fool of myself." "That, sir, can I trouble you to let go of me? We can communicate in Japanese. I've learned Japanese." Shinyu had played with too many sexy girls, but this was the first time he met such a pure girl. His interest was immediately piqued. He reluctantly withdrew his finger and said, "Junko, don't call me sir. Call me Ayu." Under his encouraging gaze, Junko stammered out his name. Her cheeks were frighteningly red. Shinyu chuckled. He felt more and more amused. He rested his chin on his finger. His tone was very gentle, but his words were shocking. He said, "Junko, I need a girl to accompany me tonight. I think you're not bad. What do you want? Just tell me." Junko's bright eyes widened. She looked at him in disbelief. Her face turned from red to white. She looked as if she had been humiliated. She felt so wrong that tears were about to fall. "Mr. Ayu, you're really too much. Although I work in a bar, I'm not that kind of girl. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." She pursed her red lips and tried her best to hold back her tears. She was like a pear blossom in the rain, making people feel pity for her. It had always been girls who enthusiastically threw themselves at him, begging for his love. He didn't expect that there would be a day when he would be rejected by a girl. Shinyu raised his eyebrows with interest. He smiled faintly and said, "How about 2 million for a night? You're really too much. Do you think money can buy everything? Let me tell you, a girl like me is not something you can afford." Junko angrily raised her chin. Her bright eyes were burning with anger. She was like an elegant and refined white lotus. Even if she was in full bloom in the mud, she still stood proudly, elegant, and dazzling. In the corner of the second floor, Jiyuchi was nestled in Shinja's arms. Both of them were wearing earphones. Hearing the girl's angry voice, Jiyuchi couldn't help but laugh. She laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out. "Aja, I think this Junko is very interesting. She is Shinai in the Meteor Garden. Although she is poor, she has a noble and tenacious heart. Well, such a girl is most popular with rich young masters. You see, Shinyu will definitely be impressed by her. She smiled very happily, her eyebrows curved into the most beautiful crescent moon shape. Her entire person was radiating with a charming luster, like a rose that bloomed passionately and passionately. Shenja liked this side of her very much, and the corners of his lips curled up as well. He stroked her hair and teased, "Why is your little head filled with so many wicked ideas?" She smugly knocked on her own head. "There are a lot of things in my head. Don't let me down in the future. Otherwise, I will definitely have many ways to make you suffer." Shenja sadly sighed. "I have a fierce wife at home. Is it too late for me to regret now?" Ji Yuchi raised her fist and fiercely said, "You can try." He laughed in a low voice. "I just like my wife. You're so powerful." "Well, good boy." She rewarded him with a kiss. While the two of them were enjoying each other's company, the relationship between Shinyu and Junko was very tense. Junko glared at Shinyu angrily. Shinyu realized that she was different from the girls he usually associated with, so he smiled very gentlemanly. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to humiliate you. What I want to say is, I like you very much, Junko." One doesn't hit a smiling person. Since he had apologized, Junko couldn't put on a sour face. She slightly turned her head and softly said, "It's okay. I forgive you, Mr. Yu. I should go back to work. Goodbye." "Wait a minute." Shinyu grabbed her wrist. When she shyly struggled, he timely released her and smiled. "I want to ask you, when are you off work?" She opened her eyes in surprise. "Is there a problem? It's not convenient for a girl like you to go home after work. I'll send you home." "No, no need. Thank you for your kindness." Junko politely refused. "Excuse me, Mr. Yu. I wish you a good night." Her delicate figure shuttled through the crowd like a graceful butterfly, causing ripples in Shinyu's heart. His gaze followed her from beginning to end, seeing her smile at the guests, seeing her being taken advantage of by the unruly guests. He actually felt a kind of anger, although he couldn't tell where this anger came from. Midnight. Junko got off work. She changed out of her work clothes and wore a white dress. Her hair was tied into a ponytail. It was high at the back of her head, adding a bit of lively vitality. She wore flat shoes and slowly walked out of the bar with a smile on her cheeks. She seemed to have thought of something fun. Shinyu sat in the driver's seat and looked at her through the window. There was an indescribable feeling of comfort in his heart. When she was only a few steps away from the car, he opened the door and appeared in front of her. There was a gentle smile on his handsome face as he gently called her name. Junko was taken aback and subconsciously took half a step back. "Mr. Yu, why haven't you left yet?" Catching her vigilant action, Shinyu's eyes were slightly cold, but his smile was still the same. "I'm waiting for you. I said I'll send you home. Thank you for your kindness, but there's really no need. At this time, the road is very dangerous. I'm worried about you being alone." Shinyu paused and said in an apologetic tone, "Take it as an apology for my rudeness just now. Or, you don't want to forgive me?" "No, that matter, I didn't take it to heart." "You don't have to mind. Then please get in the car." Shinyu opened the door for her and waited with a smile. Junko had no choice but to politely bow. "Then I'll have to trouble you." From a certain point of view, Ji Yuchi admired Shinyu. Clearly, at the beginning, because of his rudeness, he had left a bad impression in Junko's heart. However, he did not give up. Instead, he changed his strategy and showed the demeanor of a Casanova. With his elegant manners, profound knowledge, humorous and witty conversation, and some thoughtful actions, he approached Junko step by step. Most girls who were treated like this by him would have a good impression of him. Ji Yuchi shook her head and sighed. Fortunately, Shinyu was very good at wooing girls. Otherwise, she was really worried that Junko would not be able to continue acting. Thus, in a short half an hour's drive, Shinyu had used his personal charm to win Junko's favor. When they got out of the car, Junko did not reject his farewell kiss. He was very considerate and kissed her cheek. Seeing the girl's blushing face, he felt a sense of accomplishment. He whispered gently in her ear, "Junko, I miss you very much. Can I go to your house for a cup of coffee?" Her ears were a sensitive area. Her body suddenly trembled and she almost went limp in his arms. Her voice carried a trace of charm. "Really, just a cup of coffee?" He solemnly vowed, "Yes, I like you. I will respect your wishes." She bit her lip and hesitated for a moment. Then, okay, Junko lived in a single apartment. It was clean and tidy, and the room was decorated very warmly. The fragrance of a young girl permeated the air. Being here, Chin-Yu's entire body relaxed. At the same time, the restless thoughts in his heart became even more active. Looking at the young girl's beautiful face and her skin that was just inches away from his, he really wanted to press her down and fiercely love her. Chin-Yu was a veteran in the field of love. Of course, he would not act rashly at this time. He had never liked to force people. He had to make Junko willing. The two hugged the coffee cup and chatted. Junko looked at him more and more gently, mixed with the shyness of her first awakening of love. He smiled, thinking that it was about time. "Junko, it's getting late. I should be leaving. You should rest early." "Okay, I'll walk you to the door." Junko's eyes revealed her reluctance to part with him, but he didn't point it out. He smiled and followed her to the door. Just as they were about to leave, he suddenly stopped and pulled her into his arms. He bent down and kissed her lips. At first, she was very surprised and allowed him to plunder her gently. Later, she leaned softly in his arms and began to respond to him. The two kissed from the door to the living room and finally to the bedroom. Everything happened so fast that Junko almost did not have time to react before she was pressed under his body. He carefully kissed every inch of her skin. He bit her earlobe and whispered in a low voice, "Can I?" She hesitated for a moment, stretched out her arms, and wrapped them around his neck, taking the initiative to kiss his lips. The two people who were full of passion quickly stripped off each other's clothes. When Chin-Yu leaned on top of Junko and was about to break through the last layer of defense, Junko suddenly pushed him away and screamed in horror. "Ah, too scary. Ah, your face, what's wrong with your face?" Chin-Yu was tormented by lust and was at the most difficult moment. After being pushed away by Junko, he was a little unhappy. But when he heard her scream in panic, his heart tightened and he quickly touched his cheek. "What's wrong with my face?" God, he didn't know if he didn't touch it. But when he touched it, he was shocked. His cheeks were full of rice-sized bumps. He looked around and saw that his arms were also full of red bumps. "What's going on? What's going on?" His eyes were terrifying. He suddenly grabbed Junko's wrist. "Do you have some disease that you pass to me?" Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 905. Junko's beautiful face turned pale and quickly shook her head. "Of course not, I am very healthy." "Ah, how can you say that about me?" I am too sad." "You go, I don't want to see you anymore." She angrily pushed him away, forgetting that she was still naked. When she reacted and wanted to wrap herself with the blanket, Chin-Yu pressed her down again. His dark eyes were like the sky covered by dark clouds. He coldly said, "Before I met you, I was all right. How can I suddenly become like this?" "You can't go, you have to give me an explanation." The goosebumps on his cheeks and body began to itch. Coupled with the unrelieved desire in his abdomen, he was like a fish being roasted on a fire. It was so uncomfortable that he wanted to die. Junko said with tears in her eyes, "You are too much. Who knows if you are allergic to something? Now you want to blame it on me. I really regret that I was blind to fall in love with you." Chin-Yu remained unmoved, still maintaining his coercive posture. Compared to the affectionate look just now, he was like a different person. His slender fingers were stuck on her neck as he coldly said, "Allergic?" "Oh, that's funny. I am allergic to seafood. But tonight, I didn't touch those things at all. Hurry up and tell me, who sent you to approach me? If you don't tell me, I will immediately break your neck." "No, don't hurt me." Junko was so scared that her tears fell down. Suddenly, she thought of something and her face turned pale. She stammered, I know what's going on." "Speak. I beg you, let me go first." "You like this, I am scared." "Trash." Shinyu coldly snorted and loosened his hand. But he still pressed her down, guarding against her sudden movement. "It's like this." She shyly lowered her eyes and whispered, "You didn't touch seafood, but I ate seafood before I got off work. Just now we kissed. Maybe my lips and mouth still have some." Shinyu sternly roared, "Shut up." His stomach churned. When he thought about kissing her and exchanging saliva with her, he felt so disgusted that he wanted to vomit. Damn it, he really wanted to throw himself into disinfectant and wash himself. The more he looked at Junko, the more he felt disgusted with her. Shinyu's mind was completely dispelled, and even the thing between his legs also softened. He angrily got out of bed and quickly walked into the bathroom. Looking at himself in the mirror, his whole body was covered with red bumps. The most serious one was his face, and it was almost impossible to see his original appearance. He was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. He fiercely punched the mirror, and with a bang, the mirror shattered into a pile of fragments. He turned on the shower and vigorously scrubbed his skin. He wished he could use a knife to cut off that layer of terrible red bumps. When he came out of the bathroom, Junko was gone, and the room was in a mess. He coldly snorted and guessed that the woman was afraid of his revenge and must have run away. He was very angry and really wanted to retaliate against her. But since she had escaped, he didn't want to cause any more trouble. He put on his clothes and quickly left this annoying place. When he was picking up his car in the parking lot, he met several people who came back late. When those people saw him, they all screamed in horror, as if they had seen a ghost. The blue veins on Shinyu's forehead jumped. If he wasn't afraid of trouble, he really wanted to kill these people and throw them into the sea to feed the sharks. Enduring the itching all over his body, he drove to the hospital as fast as he could. After the doctor examined him, he said, "Sir, this is acute hives caused by allergy. Don't worry, I will prescribe you some anti-allergy medicine, and you will get better." Sure enough, it was an allergy caused by kissing. Shinyu was about to go crazy because of this ruthless fact. He was lying in the VIP ward with an 4 drip on his wrist. In his heart, he tortured Junko again and again. He secretly thought that if he met Junko again, he would not let her go. Junko, who was cursed by him, was wearing a black skull t-shirt and a pair of ripped jeans. Chewing gum in her mouth, she swiped the room card to open the door of a 5-star hotel. She jumped and threw herself on the soft mattress. Rubbing her cheek against the quilt, she muttered with satisfaction, "It's so comfortable. I can finally have my beauty sleep." The next day, the sun was bright and the fresh and comfortable sea breeze was blowing. On the balcony's recliner, a fair-skinned woman was lazily basking in the sun. She was wearing sunglasses on the bridge of her nose and a Bluetooth headset in her ear. Her tone was brisk as she talked to someone. "Dear, I let you and the boss hear the whole live broadcast last night. How was it? Were you satisfied with my service?" This tone and way of speaking was very unique. It was Blue Snow, Zay's second sister, who was good at role-playing and liked to deceive all kinds of men. Ji-Yuchi and Shinja strolled on the beach, looking at the place where the sea met the sky. Ji-Yuchi laughed softly. "I'm very satisfied, dear. I was just mentioning it. I didn't expect you to really have that kind of allergic medicine. You're really amazing. I love you to death." Blue Snow giggled. "Don't. Be careful that the boss is jealous. Those medicines were actually made by my eldest sister. You may not know, but she likes to tinker with all kinds of strange things. If you meet her in the future, don't touch anything she gives you. Otherwise, you'll have a good time. Remember my reminder, dear. Blue Snow and Ah Zay's eldest sister was called Lan Fei. Her name was very lowly, but in fact, she was frighteningly mature. She liked to research strange drugs. Whoever dared to offend her would be waiting to be used as a human test subject. One was a devil, and the other was a weirdo. Ji Yuqi thought of Ah Zay's evaluation of Lan Fei, and Blue Snow. 3 black lines slid down her forehead. She smiled and said, "I'll remember, dear. It's been hard on you last night. I'm really sorry to ask you to help me when you're on vacation. Why are you so polite? You know that I like to do those things. If there's such a good thing in the future, leave it for me." After saying that, she suddenly smirked twice and whispered, "Let me tell you a secret, Chen Yu's figure is pretty good. If it wasn't for the fact that I drugged him and made him full of bumps, I would really want to do it with him." "Second sister, you're so bold." "Ha ha ha, I'm just teasing you. I'm a pure and good girl. I can kiss and touch, but I can't do it. You know." She really wanted to kneel down to her bold second sister. "Dear, let me tell you a secret. The medicine I made for Shinyu will not only make him allergic, but also make him unable to get hard for a month." Although Ji Yuqi was a little embarrassed, she still gave her face and laughed. "Really? Your big sister is really amazing. She can actually make that kind of medicine." Blue Snow's tone was regretful. If only Shinyu could not get hard for the rest of his life. In the face of delicious beauties, he can only look but not eat. Hee, a man like him who can't leave women will definitely feel like his heart is being twisted by a knife and suffer inhumane torture. If that's the case, aren't you afraid that he'll chase after you? Your true face has been seen by him. What's there to be afraid of? At most, I'll go to Korea for plastic surgery. Anyway, I'm already tired of looking at my own face and want to change it for a new one. Sister Blue Snow, I really admire you. You can live so freely." Blue Snow gave people the feeling that she did as she pleased. As long as it was something she liked, she would do it no matter how dangerous it was. At the same time, no one could force her to do something she didn't like. Blue Snow smiled evilly. "Actually, you can do it too. But if you want to play with men, forget it. Boss is always watching you." She was talking about being free, not playing with men. The two women had been chatting for more than 5 minutes, and they even talked about playing with men. Boss was very dissatisfied. He tightened his grip on Ji Yuqi's waist and leaned closer to her. His cold voice was transmitted to Blue Snow's ear through the phone. "If you dare to lead Yuqi astray again, your leave will be shortened by a week." Blue Snow cried out, "Boss, I'm innocent. I didn't say anything." Seeing that young Master Shin was about to flip out, Ji Yuqi hurriedly said, "That's it then. Dear, we'll contact each other next time." After hanging up the phone, she rubbed against his chest to please him. "Ja, let's go diving, okay? Don't interact with Blue Snow in the future. She's actually quite good. Boo-hoo, don't pinch my nose." "Okay, I promise I won't talk to her about those unhealthy things in the future." The pair of jade lovers interlocked their fingers and walked further and further away on the beach. The hives on Shinyu's body had stopped itching, but the lumps had not dissipated. He still looked a little scary. He was a person who cared a lot about his reputation. He did not want others to see his ugly appearance, so he locked himself in the hospital ward to recuperate and did not go anywhere. According to the original plan, he had to return to China tomorrow. He had no choice but to postpone his trip by 2 days. Just as he finished his call to inform 13 to change his schedule, his assistant in China suddenly called. "Mr. Shen, there's a rumor that Wang Fuhai is planning to sell his shares privately, and he's in contact with our rival, Zhongxin Technology Company. The chairman wants you to return to China immediately and negotiate with Wang Fuhai to buy his shares first." Shin Yu frowned. Where's the chairman? The chairman left for Southeast Asia yesterday for an inspection. He didn't have time to call you because he was pressed for time. Shin Yu frowned even more. Okay, I got it. I'll rush back today. Get someone to keep an eye on Wang Fuhai. No matter what method you use, you must stall for time until I return. Asterisk. Although Shin Yu cared a lot about his reputation, the shares of the Shin Group were more important. He and Shin Jinhao only held 40% of the shares in total. In addition to the 10% that Shinja inherited from his mother, the shares held by the Shin family had an absolute advantage in the board of directors. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for Shin Jinhao to take the position of chairman. Come and see Shinwu 799. Chapter 906. This was also the reason why Shinzhou was able to restrain Shin Jinhao and his son. If Wang Fuhai's 10% shares could be obtained by Shin Yu, then the father and son would no longer have to worry about Shinja. Shin Yu made a prompt decision and immediately contacted 13 to change his ticket to the afternoon flight. As for Shinja, he also received a call from the country. After ending the call, the corner of his lips raised into a mysterious smile, and he rubbed Ji Yuqi's hair. Didn't you want to see Shin Yu's appearance full of bumps? I'll take you to see it in the afternoon, how about it? Go to the hospital? What if he asks how we know he's sick? How are we going to answer? Not to the hospital, to the airport. He's going back to China this afternoon. Ji Yuqi blinked, thought for a moment, and said, then let's go back to China and take the same flight as him. Let's anger him to death. Shinja couldn't help but laugh. All right. Oh right, how did you know he was going back to China this afternoon? Ji Yuqi's face was full of admiration. Their family Shinja was almost like a living immortal. A shareholder of the board of directors intends to sell his shares privately. When the news reached the ears of Shin Jinhao and his son, they will definitely not let go of such a good opportunity. Shin Jinhao just went to Southeast Asia on a business trip, so Shin Yu can only come forward to negotiate with the shareholder, so I guess Shin Yu will definitely take the afternoon flight back home. So that's how it is. Then you should hurry back and talk to that shareholder. It's best if you buy the shares in your hands. Shinja gently kissed her forehead and said softly, there's no hurry. That 10% of shares will fall into my hands sooner or later. I've already made the arrangements. Aja, you're amazing. Ji Yuqi hugged his neck and praised him, her eyes filled with worship. This caused Shinja's pride to rapidly swell. He hugged her very tightly. For their future, he would become even more powerful and take back those things that belonged to him. Airport, VIP lounge. There were a few passengers sitting in 2s and 3s waiting to board the plane. One of them was very eye-catching. He was wearing a long-sleeved shirt and black trousers. The buttons on his neck were all buttoned up to the first one. He was wearing sunglasses that covered half of his face and a white mask, covering himself very tightly. This person was Shin Yu. He was indifferent to the surrounding gazes, seriously looking at the tablet. On the tablet, there were electronic documents sent to him by his assistant that he needed to review. A beautiful stewardess accompanied by 2 security personnel walked to Shin Yu's side. She politely bowed and said, I'm sorry, sir, please show us your ID, we want to verify your identity. Shin Yu impatiently, he looked to the people in front of him. He frowned and said, what's going on? Didn't you already show us your ID before entering the lounge? The stewardess smiled politely. I'm sorry if I caused you any trouble. He turned to look to 13 to look and to turn. And 13 nodded. After you to confirm. To confirm you to 2s to confirm you to verify to 2s to check. You to verify to check to verify to confirms to verify. Confirm. To verify to the end, you use 2s 2 of them. Of to verify to verify to verify to verifies to verify to. To you to check. Used to his stus to Li while speaking, his whole body emitted a cold and domineering aura. The stewardess calmly smiled and said, I'm sorry, but in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, I can't tell you the reason. If you don't want to cooperate, please come with us. Shinyu had never been insulted like this before. He immediately became furious and snapped, Are you trying to imprison me illegally? You misunderstood, sir. I just want to ask you to come to the examination room for our inspection. Shinyu suddenly stood up. His sharp eyes stared at the stewardess and coldly said, Your practice has violated my rights. Before you tell me the reason for the inspection, I have the right to refuse to cooperate with you. 13. Immediately contact my lawyer. I want to talk to the local tourism bureau directly. Their dispute has attracted the attention of everyone in the lounge. Everyone turned their attention to them. The stewardess' smile was somewhat stiff. She awkwardly said, Sir, as long as you come with me to the examination room, I will tell you the reason. Shinyu slightly raised his chin. His whole body emitted an arrogant aura. He lightly said, Before I get the reason, I will not cooperate with you. The stewardess hesitated for a few seconds and helplessly said, Well, I can tell you. The airport received a report that terrorists have sneaked into the airport and are preparing to board the plane to China. So we have to check the suspicious passengers again. In order to avoid causing panic among the other passengers, they could not reveal the reason before the inspection. However, encountering a difficult passenger like Shinyu, she had no other choice. As soon as her voice fell, Shinyu angrily questioned, You actually think I'm suspicious? If there was no mask covering his face, the stewardess would have been able to see Shinyu's ashen face. The stewardess apologized, I'm sorry. The surrounding people silently agreed. That man was fully armed and had a fierce bodyguard by his side. He indeed looked suspicious. A Chinese old lady muttered, Young man, I think you should take off your mask and glasses. If you're not a terrorist, they won't do anything to you. Most of the people sitting here were Chinese. Everyone agreed. That's right, friend. Let the stewardess check it out. It's not like anything will happen. We're about to board the plane. Don't waste the airport staff's time. Let them quickly find the terrorists. Otherwise, when we get on the plane, we won't feel at ease. This is a matter of life and death. That's right, that's right. As everyone chimed in, the airport's boarding announcement rang. Passengers heading to Beijing, China, please note, your flight CA-838 is now boarding. Please bring your belongings, show your boarding pass, and board the plane from Gate 3. I wish you a pleasant journey. Thank you. Ah, it's already boarding. What should we do? Since there are terrorists, should we postpone the flight? The surrounding passengers discussed in low voices. From time to time, they would look at Shinyu, as if blaming him for wasting the airport staff's time. Of course, Shinyu would not put them in his eyes. However, he was in a hurry to return home. If he missed this flight, he would have to wait for several hours. Moreover, he would have to transfer from other areas. It would be too troublesome, so he had no choice but to cooperate with the stewardess. With a cold face, he followed the stewardess to the security inspection room. With a tough attitude, Shinyu drove away the rest of the people, leaving only the stewardess and a security guard. When he took off his sunglasses and mask, the stewardess and the security guard were surprised. He expressionlessly said, My skin is allergic. I was worried about scaring others, so I covered it up. If you misunderstood me as a terrorist, I would like to express my indignation at your actions. The stewardess apologetically bowed, I'm really sorry. After confirming his identity, he was finally allowed to board the plane. This was the worst trip that Shinyu had ever experienced, bar none. His mood was terrible. With a belly full of anger, he came to his seat under the stewardess's guidance. The next second, seeing the two people sitting in the back row, Shinyu had the urge to immediately jump off the plane. Ji Yuchi waved at Shinyu and said with a smile, Hi, second young master Shin, we meet again. Ah, my god, in such a hot weather, why are you wearing sunglasses and a mask? I almost didn't recognize you. The sunglasses covered the burning anger in Shinyu's eyes, but it also couldn't cover his clenched fists. Ji Yuchi smiled even more happily. I didn't expect that we would sit on the same plane. It's really fate. Don't you think so, second brother? Second brother, damn, what kind of address is this? This woman, what should I do if I want to kick her off the plane? Shinyu snorted with a fake smile. Yes, it's really a coincidence. His whole body exuded a dark aura of, I'm very unhappy. Ji Yuchi, who was lucky enough to witness him being taken away by the stewardess and the security guard, wanted to laugh out loud. She simply admired Shinja. He actually thought of such a wicked way to anonymously call the airport and report that he saw a terrorist sneaking into the airport. In this way, Shinyu, who was wrapped up tightly, became the #1 suspect. That was why there was such an embarrassing scene in the lounge. Although Shinja's actions were suspected of disrupting the order of the airport, a strange combination of factors led to the discovery of a terrorist when the airport security guard was investigating the suspicious passengers. That terrorist sewed a plastic bomb to the crotch of his NEI pants. After detonating, it was enough to blow up a plane. After the terrorist was arrested, the airport staff and the passengers who knew about it all broke out in cold sweat. They were silently grateful to the person who reported it in their hearts. As for Shinja and Ji Yuchi, they had no idea that the terrorist was really found. After more than 10 hours of flight, they boarded Shinja's private plane at the Capital International Airport and flew to Ing City. The next day at 10 o'clock in the morning, the plane landed at Ing City Airport. Liang Yu had been waiting outside the airport for a long time. When he finally saw his boss and his future wife walking out side by side, he quickly went forward to welcome them. Eldest young master, Miss Ji, you must have had a hard journey. The car is ready. Shinja nodded. He held Ji Yuchi's hand and followed Liang Yu to the car park. After getting in the car, he ordered Liang Yuan, who was driving in front, Yuan, send us to the Ji family first. Ji Yuchi held his hand and smiled. If you're busy, let Liang Yuan send you to the company first. I'll go back alone later. Shinja held her hand tightly. I'm not busy. I'll send you. Liang Yu really wanted to find a ball of cotton to plug his ears. That way, he wouldn't be conflicted about whether or not to remind his boss. Shinyu had also arrived in Ing City and was rushing to Wang Fuhai's residence. Beauty novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 907. In the end, he mustered up his courage and interrupted the warm and beautiful atmosphere in the car. Eldest young master, Shinyu arrived in Ing City 20 minutes ago. He should be on his way to Wang Fuhai's house now. Shinja's expression did not change much. His tone was extremely calm. Let him go. It was just a few simple words, but Liang Yu could tell that he had a card up his sleeve. It seemed that everything was already under his control. Strategizing, deciding victory from 1,000 miles away. No wonder he was the big boss that he respected the most. Shinja sent Ji Yuchi to the entrance of the Ji family's house. After the two hugged and said goodbye, Ji Yuchi watched his car drive onto the road. She hummed a little tune and walked into the house with relaxed steps. She thought that Chen Tingfang and her father's divorce was settled and she would never have to see Chen Tingfang again. She did not expect that the person sitting upright on the sofa was the person she did not want to see. Oh, Yuchi is back. Was it fun going out with your boyfriend? Was that woman with a kind smile really the Chen Tingfang who had fought with her father for the family property until her face turned red? What on earth had happened during the week she had been traveling? Ji Yuchi's mind was full of questions, but she still maintained a decent smile on her face. She said lightly, Auntie Chen, I thought I wouldn't be able to see you again this time. Look at you, child. What nonsense are you saying? We are a family. How could I not see you? Auntie Li, Miss is back. Hurry up and bring me a bowl of soup I made. Yuchi, you must be hungry after such a long flight. Have some soup to warm your stomach. Chen Tingfang was very enthusiastic. just like when she first married into the family. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Ji Yuchi was secretly vigilant, but the smile on her face did not change. No need, Auntie Chen. I ate on the plane. I'm not hungry at all. I'm just a little tired. Then hurry upstairs and rest. What do you want to eat for lunch? Auntie will ask the kitchen to prepare it for you. Everything is fine. I'm not picky. Auntie, I'll go upstairs first. Ji Yuchi took a shower, changed her clothes, and lay on the comfortable fabric sofa in the bedroom. While wiping her wet hair with a towel, she dialed Ji Yunhan's number. At this time, he should have finished school. Hello, sister, you're back? The young man's excited voice was transmitted to her ear through the phone. She smiled and said, Yes, I'm back. Did you miss me? Humph, I don't want to. You and Shinja ran out to play and left me alone at home. I'm bored to death. You're too disloyal. Humph, you're not convinced? If you're not convinced, come and bite me. Ji Yuchi bickered with him for a while and started to talk business. Ahan, what's going on with Chen Tingfang? Why is she still living at home? Ji Yunhan sighed like an old man. Don't mention it. Dad said that he can't get a divorce for the time being. The two scourges, Chen Tingfang and Yizisu, have to continue living in our house. What happened? On the third day after you left, Chen Tingfang's cousin, Lu Jianfeng, suddenly came to visit. He chatted with Dad in the study for the whole afternoon. I don't know what they talked about, but that night, Dad told me that he won't get a divorce for the time being. I asked him why, but he refused to tell me. I'm guessing that Lu Jianfeng must have threatened Dad. Ji Yuchi frowned. Ahan's words made sense. Dad's change of heart must have had something to do with Lu Jianfeng. Sis, there's one more thing. After Lu Jianfeng came to visit our house, Chen Tingfang and Yizisu made up. Also, Yizisu stopped going to nightclubs and went back to being the innocent little white flower she used to be. Ji Yuchi pinched the space between her eyebrows and sighed. It seems that a lot of things have happened while I was away. One last thing, sis. Brother Tang came to look for you. Brother Tang was referring to Tang Feng. Ever since Ji Yuchi rejected his proposal, the two of them had not contacted each other. She did not expect him to come to her house to look for her. She asked in surprise, why was he looking for me? Brother Tang said that he's going to England for his postgraduate studies. He has already received an offer from Cambridge University. That's great. Congratulations to him. Ji Yunhan was silent for a moment before he said, Sis, you should give Brother Tang a call and congratulate him in person. When he came to look for you that day, you weren't around. He looked very disappointed. The name Tang Feng ran through her mind over and over again. From time to time, memories of her childhood flashed through her mind. Ji Yuchi sighed and finally picked up her phone to call him. The phone rang twice and she heard his deep voice. Yuchi? Ji Yuchi pretended to laugh lightly. Brother Tang Feng, I heard from Ahan that you've received an offer from Cambridge University. Congratulations. The person on the other end of the phone was silent for a long time before he slowly said, Thank you. Ji Yuchi scratched the back of the sofa with her fingers and smiled sweetly. Brother Tang Feng, how are Grandpa and Grandma Tang? I brought them gifts from abroad. I'll bring them to them tomorrow. Is it convenient? Yes, it's convenient for you to come over whenever you want. After learning that he had been accepted, Tang Feng had a lot to say to Yuchi. When he mustered up the courage to go to her house, Ahan told him that she was traveling abroad with a friend. Tang Feng's enthusiasm was immediately extinguished. He thought that she was in love. The so-called friend must be her boyfriend. He asked Ahan for confirmation and Ahan admitted it. Although he already knew that he couldn't win back Yuchi's feelings and tried his best to forget her, he still couldn't help but feel pain in his heart when he learned that she was dating Shinja. Ji Yuchi pretended not to hear the pain in his voice. Brother Tang Feng, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Dead silence returned to his ears. Tang Feng looked at the phone in his hand and bitterly pursed his lips. That night, the whole family had dinner together. Ji Bowen hadn't seen his daughter for a few days and missed her very much. He kept putting food in her bowl and piling it up like a small hill. Ji Yunhan said childishly, "Dad, you're biased. You value girls more than boys." Ji Bowen deliberately scolded with a straight face, "Girls should be pampered and boys should be rough. Otherwise, how can you grow up to be an indomitable man?" "Dad, you're looking for excuses for your bias," Ji Yunhan said with dissatisfaction, but his face was full of smiles. On the table that had long been lifeless, the laughter of the past was finally restored. Ji Yuqi secretly observed for a long time and realized that although Chen Tingfang and Yizisu seemed to have reconciled on the surface, they were actually divided at heart. Well, there was Shaoihan between the two of them, so how could there not be a barrier? As the saying goes, a broken mirror is hard to mend. They were just maintaining harmony on the surface. After dinner, Ji Yuqi gave the gifts she bought from Hawaii to everyone one by one. Yizisu looked like a close sister and thanked her affectionately. Chen Tingfang was also very enthusiastic. She couldn't wait to hug Ji Yuqi and shout, "Good daughter." The two siblings, Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan, were thunderstruck by the mother and daughter's exaggerated performance. They tried their best not to get goosebumps all over their bodies. The whole family gathered together and chatted for a while before returning to their rooms to rest. Ji Bowen went to the study. Ji Yuqi followed in and muttered unhappily, "Dad, didn't you want to divorce Auntie Chen? Why aren't you divorcing her?" Ji Bowen sighed. "Chi-Chi, I know that you and Ahan don't like her, but Dad is also very helpless. There are some things that I can't control. Chi-Chi, I've already talked to her. She won't cause trouble for you and Ahan in the future. Just hold on for a few more years, okay? Dad, tell me the truth. Did Lu Jianfeng threaten you? Ahan told you, right?" Ji Bowen pinched his eyebrows. "You're still young. Don't worry about these things for the time being. Don't think too much about it. Dad will take care of it." "Dad, I'm not young anymore. Just tell me." Ji Yuqi shook his arm coquettishly. "Dad, after I graduate, I'll enter the G group. If you keep hiding everything from me now and shield me from the wind and rain, how can I grow and manage the company in the future? You should let me know about these things earlier." All right. "I really don't know what to do with you." Ji Bowen was moved by her words. He deliberated for a while and said, "Lu Jianfeng is about to be transferred to Ying City and become the leader of Ying City. You know that although our Ji family's business is very big, we rarely come into contact with the ways of the government. If he casually sets a trap for us, we'll fall into it. A few days ago, he came to visit me. During our conversation, he mentioned a few investments made by the G Group. He even said that there might be financial problems. Tell me, if this isn't a clear threat, then what is?" As he spoke, his chest rose and fell rapidly. His expression was very ugly. Ji Yuqi patted his chest tenderly and said softly, "Dad, don't be agitated. Take a deep breath." Ji Bowen shook his head. "I'm fine. Lu Jianfeng is in the limelight now. I have to give him some face. It's just that you and Ahan will have to suffer. Dad, don't worry. Even if Chen Tingfang stays in our house, Ahan and I won't let her bully us." Ji Yuqi gritted her teeth. Her beautiful face was filled with determination. "Dad, Lu Jianfeng won't be able to be arrogant for long. Once he falls, Chen Tingfang will have no backing. Let's see how long they can be arrogant for." She thought to herself, "Lu Jianfeng, I originally wanted to stay out of your way. I didn't expect you to interfere with the Ji family's affairs. Don't blame me for being heartless." After Shinyu rushed back from Hawaii, he immediately went to Wang Fuhai's house. He went straight to the point and said that he wanted to buy the shares in his hands. He didn't expect Wang Fuhai to say that the shares had been sold to Zhongxin Technology. He suppressed his anger and said sternly, "How can you sell the shares in private? You're harming the company's interests." Wang Fuhai already had the money from selling the shares in his hands. He didn't put Shen Yu in his eyes. He sneered, "Second young master Shen, it's because I have someone like you as the CEO that I have to plan for my own future. Do you want me to wait for you to squander the Shen family group before I think for myself? Humph, before you accuse others, please consider your own weight. Do you really think you're the owner of the Shen family group?" Shen Yu was furious. In the past, when the board of directors convened, there were indeed many directors who didn't give him face and found fault with him. However, no one dared to be so explicit. He couldn't stand being insulted like this. He stood up and glared at Wang Fuhai. "Wang Fuhai, don't be complacent. I'll make you pay for today's actions." Wang Fuhai also stood up. Although he didn't have the advantage in height, his aura didn't lose to the young man. He said coldly and arrogantly, "What other abilities do you have? Use them all. Are you going to send someone to break my car, create a car accident, or kidnap my child?" At that time, in order to stop Wang Fuhai from selling the shares, Shen Yu specifically told his assistant to delay the time no matter what means he used. The assistant was also from the underground organization. The method he came up with was also quite bad. First, he asked someone to break Wang Fuhai's car so that he couldn't go out. Then, he asked someone to create a small car accident to hurt Wang Fuhai so that he couldn't negotiate with the people of Zhongxin Technology on schedule. But Shen Yu's assistant never thought that Shenja had already sent people to secretly protect Wang Fuhai and resolved all the crises. At the same time, he also let Wang Fuhai see Shen Yu's despicable character. That's why Wang Fuhai hated Shen Yu so much and said those mocking words. Shen Yu was blocked by Wang Fuhai's words. His cold aura instantly dissipated by half. He stared at Wang Fuhai expressionlessly and coldly said, "I'll let you know my methods." Wang Fuhai sneered, "If you have any methods, just use them. However, Shen Yu, I want to remind you, don't go too far. As the saying goes, leave a line for everything so that we can meet in the future. Maybe you, the second young master Shen, will beg me, so why be so aggressive?" Shen Yu coldly snorted, "Good, very good. Let's see who will beg who in the future." Wang Fuhai relied on foreign trade to make a fortune. He has a lot of connections overseas. But compared to Shen Yu, he can only be regarded as a small child. Shen Yu has a friendship with the international hacker Great White Shark, and Great White Shark has a lot of underground organizations. So, indirectly, Shen Yu also has some connections with the underground organizations. If he wanted to quietly destroy Wang Fuhai's overseas business, it would not be difficult. However, he never expected that Wang Fuhai would change into the vice chairman of Zhongxin Technology and become his real opponent in name. Zhongxin Technology, Chairman and President Office. Wang Fuhai symbolically knocked on the door and walked into the office. Looking at the young man sitting on the chair, he smiled and said, "Mr. Shen, I'm here to report." "Uncle Wang, aren't you making fun of me? Just call me by my name in the future." Shenja stood up to greet him. On his usually cold and handsome face, a faint smile appeared. His tone was sincere. "Uncle Wang, thank you for supporting me. Why are you so polite? I was also entrusted by your grandfather." Wang Fuhai's chubby body leaned on the back of the chair. His face showed a kind smile. "I'm really very happy to see you grow up." Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 908. Wang Fuhai is actually the son of Shenja's grandfather, Qin Tianyou's good friend. He grew up with Shenja's mother, Qin Yuelan. After Qin Yuelan passed away, Qin Tianyou asked him to take care of Shenja. That's why Wang Fuhai bought a large amount of Shen Group's shares and eventually became one of the most important directors. Before Shenja returned to China, he had quietly established Zhongxin Technology with Wang Fuhai's help. The development of Zhongxin technology is also due to his contribution. After Shinja returned to China, he encountered a lot of pressure when he first entered the Shin group. It was also Wang Fuhai who secretly helped him. But now, Shinja has the strength to compete with the Shin group. Therefore, Wang Fuhai retired and transferred 10% of his shares to Zhongxin Technology and became the vice chairman of Zhongxin Technology. Shinja was grateful for what he had done and sincerely said, "Uncle Wang, if it wasn't for your support, I wouldn't have grown so quickly. In the future, as long as I, Shinja, am around, Zhongxin Technology will definitely not treat you unfairly." The child in front of him grew up from an autistic child to today's all-powerful and independent company's person in charge. Wang Fuhai could understand the sadness in his heart. He couldn't help but feel a lump in his throat and scolded with a smile, "Brat, why are you talking about this? If your mother saw you like this, she would be so happy that she would cry." "Uncle Wang, you seem to be crying." Shinja made a rare joke. "How could I? My eyes are filled with sand." Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Tell me, what's your next plan?" While the atmosphere here was warm, the Shin family's study room was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. Shin Jinhao just returned from a business trip abroad and heard that Wang Fuhai sold his shares to Zhongxin Technology and became the vice chairman of Zhongxin Technology. This made his mood extremely bad. With a pale face, he said, "Zhongxin Technology, do you know anything about this company?" Shin Yu's face was also not good. He said in a deep voice, "Zhongxin Technology is a high-tech company established 4 years ago. It mainly engages in software development, game development, and other businesses. 2 years ago, it began to expand into real estate, tourism, and other industries. It's now a strong competitor of the Shin Group." "Who's in charge of the company?" "The chairman and CEO of Zhongxin Technology. It's said that he's a foreigner and has never shown his face." "It said?" Shin Jinhao's temper was very bad. He couldn't help but vent his anger. "Don't you have a lot of connections? Why can't you find out anything about this?" "Dad, the other party's background is not small. How can we find out everything just like that? I feel that the most important thing right now isn't to find out who is responsible, but to stabilize the hearts of the people." There are a few old men on the board who have a good relationship with Wang Fuhai, and we have to prevent them from rebelling. In addition, when the news of high-tech acquiring 10% of the Shin family's shares is announced, it will definitely cause a certain amount of panic. We need to prepare for it in advance. At this point, complaining wouldn't solve anything. Shin Jinhao also calmed down and discussed with Qin Yu how to deal with this. 2 days later, the news of Zhongxin Technology Company's intention to acquire the Shin's group was spread. Most people laughed it off. What was Zhongxin Technology Company? A company that had not even been established for 4 years. How could they acquire the largest corporation in Ing City, the Shin's group? Stop joking around. The Shin Corporation did not take this rumor seriously at all. They continued to do what they were supposed to do. The previously low-key president, Shin Yu, gradually became high-profile. He began to accept media interviews and frequently appeared at charity events. He told everyone with practical actions that the Shin Corporation was very stable and would not be affected by the acquisition storm. However, the board of directors did not think so. More than half of the directors requested for a board meeting to have Shin Yu explain the acquisition of shares by Zhongxin Technology Company. The few directors who were close to Wang Fuhai severely criticized Shin Yu for not fulfilling his duties as the president. They felt that he was not a qualified manager. A white-haired director said mercilessly, "I think that if the Shin's group wants to develop, we need to change to someone more capable and more daring than Shin Yu to take charge of the situation." Shin Yu's face was gloomy. "Director Zhang, if you feel that I am not suitable for the position of president, then who do you think is more suitable?" Director Zhang said expressionlessly, "I think Shinja is more suitable. Although his experience in the Shin's group is not as good as yours, from the few things he has done after entering the Shin's group, we can see that he is more daring than you. The president is the executive of a company. He must be farsighted and have the ability to strategize. We have all seen last year's financial report. Since Shinja returned to the country, the company's operations have become more efficient. Moreover, the company's net profit has increased by 20%. This is the total increase of the company's profits in the 3 years that you have led the company. His words were powerful and resonant, and the large conference room immediately became silent. After nearly 10 seconds of silence, someone finally spoke up for Shinyu. Director Zhang, it seems that you've gone a bit too far. Shinja is only the vice president. Many of the things he did were done with Shinyu's approval. At the end of the day, it's still Shinyu's outstanding vision and tolerance. An excellent leader not only needs to be far-sighted, but also needs to know how to use people. Director Zhang retorted, know how to use people? Before Shinja came back, most of the company's middle and high-level managers were Shinyu's trusted aides. In the end, they were unclear about their duties, evaded responsibility, used their power for personal gain, embezzled the company's public funds, and even colluded with competitors. Is this how he knows how to use people? The person who spoke well of Shinyu was questioned until he was speechless, and another person immediately stepped forward to analyze Shinja's shortcomings. As a result, the board of directors turned into a vegetable market. Everyone was divided into 2 groups. One group was led by Director Zhang, who supported Shinja to seize the position of president. The other group was led by Shin Jinhao, who supported Shinyu to continue to be the president. The 2 groups quarreled for more than an hour without convincing each other. Finally, Shin Jinhao said, I propose that we vote. Everyone agreed. Finally, it was unanimously decided that for 2 months, the board of directors would examine the decision-making and leadership ability of the current president and vice president, and then vote to elect the new president. In other words, starting from this decision, Shinja was no longer under Shinyu's control. He could bypass Shinyu and make management decisions. After the meeting was over, only Shinja and Shinyu were left in the large conference room. Shinyu said with a smile, brother, congratulations. Shinja said indifferently, it won't be too late for you to congratulate me when I'm promoted to president. Shinyu laughed gloomily, hee, for today's show, you must have spent a lot of effort. In order to make those old things stand on your side, what benefits did you give them? This sentence, I should be the one asking you. What on earth did you do to make those people stand on your side? His tone was very calm, and his deep eyes were like the dangerous deep sea. Even if he didn't reveal the slightest bit of it, Shinyu could hear the contempt in his words. The veins on Shinyu's forehead jumped. He gritted his teeth and said, I won't let you succeed. This position is mine. Shinja didn't say a word. He expressionlessly brushed past him. It seemed that he disdained to continue the boring conversation between the 2 of them. Shinyu was about to go crazy. His handsome face was distorted with anger. He secretly swore in his heart that he must defeat him and trample him under his feet. That night, Shinyu wanted to find a woman to relax and adjust his mood. He asked his assistant to call a young model. The 2 of them had a candlelight dinner in his apartment. Then, they got to the point. The young model skillfully teased him, but he didn't have the slightest reaction. The young model tried her best to serve him, but he still didn't respond. Shinyu flew into a rage out of humiliation and pushed the young model away. Go away, I'm not in the mood tonight. The young model aggrievedly got up from the ground and put on her clothes. She pitifully glanced at him a few times. When she found that he didn't have any intention to stay, she reluctantly left. Shinyu angrily threw the vase to the ground. He firmly refused to accept the fact that he couldn't. He thought that the young model wasn't good enough and didn't arouse his interest. So, he didn't give up. He called the hottest and most skilled female companion. The female companion was wearing a sexy halter dress. Her chest squeezed out a deep ravine. She swayed her waist and buttocks. With a seductive look in her eyes, she kept sending electricity to him. Her hands were wandering around the sensitive areas of his body. Damn it, there was still no reaction. Shinyu violently shook off his female companion. Go away, I don't need you. The female companion coquettishly stomped her feet, hugged her clothes and ran away. But in her heart, she was thinking, could it be that second young Master Shen couldn't? It seemed that she would have to find another financial backer in the future. After all, who would be willing to serve a waste? The other sisters still didn't know about this. She had to tell them not to dream of marrying into the Shen family. Shen Yu's private life was chaotic. Many of his women knew about the existence of other people. Some of them even established friendships. So, the news that second young Master Shen's masculinity was no longer as strong as it had grown wings and quickly spread throughout that circle. Of course, Ji Yuqi's credit was also indispensable. Hey, I heard that the CEO of Shen Group can't do it anymore. Didn't they say that his golden gun won't fall 7 times a night? That was in the past. Now, he can't do it anymore. I think it's because he played with too many women. Isn't it just, as long as you work hard, an iron pestle can be ground into a needle? Later, the conversation between these women was overheard by the men. From time to time, the playboy who had dealings with Shen Yu would come in front of him and stare at a certain part of his body with ill intentions. He laughed evilly and said, "Second young Master Shen, I heard that you can't do it anymore. Do you want me to introduce a doctor to you?" A man's dignity was insulted. Shen Yu was so angry that his face turned green. He gritted his teeth and said, "Who told you?" Now that everyone has spread the news, the women in the circle don't dare to look for you to play. Shen Yu almost crushed the wine glass. Only 2 people knew about that matter. It must have been those 2 bitches who spread the news. As a result, those 2 pitiful women quickly suffered Shen Yu's revenge. One was kicked out of the modeling circle and couldn't even find a job. The other, after being raped by a hooligan, had her face scratched. Unless she had plastic surgery, no one would be willing to support her in the future. Shen Yu didn't know what happened to his body. He was worried that his medical treatment in the country would be discovered, so he specially made a trip to the United States and went to the most famous expert for a checkup. The expert said that his body was normal. Perhaps it was because of a psychological problem that caused his impotence. Shen Yu suddenly remembered that ever since he kissed Junko and caused an allergic reaction, his body began to become abnormal. It must be at that time that caused a psychological shadow. Damn it, it was all Junko's fault. He must find that bitch and make her live a life worse than death. Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.